I'd first like to call the meeting to order tonight and thank you all for attending. So I will turn it over first to our planning director, Ms. Nestor Jelen, to call the roll.
I'll go ahead and call the meeting to roll. As you can tell, with so many people here in the room, if you wouldn't mind, if you do need to have a side conversation, if you could do so out in the rotunda and then come back in, just so that everyone around you can hear what's going on with the meeting, we would very much appreciate it. I'll go ahead and call the roll. Margaret Clements. Here. Tron Enright Randolph.
I'm here. I haven't attended virtually on Teams, so I just wanted to make sure I'm being heard clearly with no choppiness. I have a few other ways of doing audio, so.
We can hear you loud and clear.
Loud and clear?
Yep.
And I also wanted to say, I really wish I could be there, but I'm attending the Association of Indiana Counties and doing this meeting in my hotel room, and also if there's anyone there that felt like they wish I could have heard what they say, I will be listening. And also, as an elected county surveyor, there is contact information on the website if anyone would like to call the office or email me. So, thank you.
Okay.
Here.
All right. Scott Ferris.
Here.
Jeff Morris.
Here.
Cheryl Munson. Edward Ullman. Dee Owens.
Here.
Jerry Pittsford.
Here.
Julie Thomas.
I'm here.
Okay, so we have 7 members on the Plan Commission attending, and then I'll also call our city representative, Chris Cockrum.
Here.
In attendance in person. And then also with us tonight are 2 other county commissioners, Penny Githens and Lee Jones. And then we've also invited in the audience other board members, county council members, township trustees, and of course, all of the public as well. So we do have a quorum.
Okay, thank you, Jackie. If you could please introduce the evidence for tonight.
I'd like to introduce the following items into the evidence: the Monroe County zoning ordinance as adopted and amended, the Monroe County comprehensive plan as adopted and amended, the Monroe County subdivision control ordinance as adopted and amended, the Monroe County Plan Commission rules of procedure as adopted and amended, and the cases that were legally advertised and scheduled for a hearing on tonight's agenda.
Move to approve.
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve the introduction of evidence. I'll call the roll. Tron Enright Randolph.
Yes.
Scott Ferris.
Yes.
Jeff Morris.
Yes.
Dee Owens.
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford.
Yes.
Julie Thomas.
Yes.
Margaret Clements.
Yes.
Motion is approved 7-0.
Okay, do we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to approve tonight's agenda, which only consists of review of the county development ordinance as a hearing for tonight. A vote yes is a vote to approve the agenda. Scott Ferris.
Yes.
Jeff Morris.
Yes.
Dee Owens.
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford.
Yes.
Julie Thomas.
Yes.
Mark.
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph.
Yes.
Motion carries 7-0.
Okay. We have no minutes to approve tonight, no administrative business, so we'll jump straight into new business tonight, which is our comprehensive amendments to the Monroe County zoning ordinance, text and maps, and subdivision control ordinance dated August 16th of 2024. So first off tonight, I'd like to thank everybody for attending. The Plan Commission consists of 9 members, 4 of which are by virtue of office and 5 are volunteers. Of the 9 members on the Plan Commission, 3 are elected, the surveyor, commissioner, and council member. And as Jackie mentioned, we have also invited county council members, county commissioners, township trustees, and other commissions to be present with us here tonight. So thank you all for joining us. So as the first item, I want to turn it over to Mr. Justin Roddy, one of our county attorneys, who will be going over a summary of legal information regarding the meeting tonight.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me?
My name is Justin Roddy. I'm an attorney with the Monroe County Attorney's Office. The purpose of tonight's hearing is to receive public comment on the draft County Development Ordinance, or CDO. The CDO process was initiated by the Monroe County Plan Commission. The draft CDO was prepared by the Plan Commission working with county staff and consultant McBride, Dale, and Clarion. The CDO comprehensively amends the text of the Monroe County Zoning Ordinance, the Monroe County Subdivision Control Ordinance, and the Monroe County zoning maps. The CDO promotes the public health, safety, comfort, morals, convenience, and general welfare by establishing zoning districts and regulating how real property may be developed, subdivided, maintained, and used within the various districts. Also, the CDO provides for planned unit developments. In preparing the draft CDO, the Plan Commission and county staff paid reasonable regard to the following: the comprehensive plan, the current conditions and the character of current structures and uses in each district, the most desirable use for which the land in each district is adapted, the conservation of property values throughout the jurisdiction, and reasonable development and growth. The Plan Commission provided notice of this hearing and a summary of the draft CDO by the following: publication in the Herald Times newspaper on September 6th, 2024, by posting written notice at the Monroe County Courthouse at least 10 days prior to this hearing, by posting electronic notice on the Plan Commission website at least 10 days prior to this hearing, and by mailing written notice to the owners of real property in the unincorporated areas of Monroe County and to the owners of real property within 1/8 of a mile of the Monroe County planning and zoning jurisdiction more than 10 days prior to this hearing. The hearing notice is stated, and I will cite these: the date, time, and place of the hearing, that copies of the draft CDO were available for examination in the Monroe County Planning Department and on the Planning Department's website, that written objections filed with the Plan Commission prior to the hearing will be considered, that oral comments will be accepted during the hearing, and that the hearing may be continued from time to time. Because the purpose of this hearing is to receive public comment, the focus of the Plan Commission and the county staff will be on listening tonight. Questions may be answered to the extent necessary to clarify meaning or the intent of a provision. The Plan Commission and county staff are not here tonight to engage in debate and will not do so. I will now turn it back over to our planning director.
Thank you, Mr. Roddy. I'll actually take the next step. So here in a moment, Jackie, our planning director, will be going over a few key areas of focus for the CDO tonight. And once she has completed her presentation, I will come back to discuss some shared understandings and the format for the meeting. And please note, as Jackie mentioned earlier, that with the size of the crowd in the room, it's vital that all side conversations take place outside the room, as this meeting is being recorded and broadcast online. So we want to make sure that everybody is able to hear. Please feel free to come and go from the room as you need to, but again, please keep conversations outside the room. And as you may have seen on your way in, we have planners available out in the rotunda sitting at folding tables that are ready to help answer any questions that you may have. So Jackie, I will now turn it over to you.
Thank you. And just before I get started, we do have the building commissioner here with us, and I just want to remind everyone, we have a capacity for safety in this room of 67 people. We're very happy to see this turnout, but before I get started on my presentation, we have 67 chairs in this room, so everyone that is standing is technically another person over capacity, which is a safety concern. So I apologize, but I'm going to pause just for a little bit, and everyone that's standing, or if anyone that's sitting would like to give up their seat to somebody that is standing, I will need everyone standing to go to the first floor. We will make sure that we keep the meeting going and that we are able to hear everyone's comment tonight. We're not going to make sure we close out the meeting before we hear from each and every one of you, but we do have a safety concern. So if anyone would be willing to switch with somebody that's standing, if someone...
On a motion to change this meeting to some bigger room. So we'll just want to make sure that everyone has a chance to speak tonight. Everyone can't have a chance to speak.
We will make sure that
downstairs watching a TV with no sound.
You can't hear.
there is sound downstairs.
You can't hear it.
Okay. let me pause the meeting and we'll just make sure that there is sound downstairs. I'm sorry, I can't keep taking hand raises. Sorry, everyone, please. We want to make sure we keep the meeting efficient.
There's no motion.
So I believe only members of the Plan Commission can make a motion. I appreciate the feedback, and I think we should take a 10-minute recess while we attempt to fix the sound downstairs, assuming we are able to fix. Let's take a 10-minute recess. We'll regather at 5:55. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting back to order. I want to thank everybody for your patience as we work through capacity issues. So I just want to remind everyone that you are able to watch what we're talking about tonight and participate from the lobby downstairs. What we'd like to do is, if you could come up, form a line at the bench to speak. Once you've spoken, if you could go downstairs, if you'd like to continue listening in, if you could go downstairs and listen from the rotunda down on the first floor, that'll give other people the opportunity to then come up and speak. So we want to make sure that we are able to hear from everybody tonight. So thank you for your cooperation in that. The other thing.
Sorry, can I make a suggestion?
Sure.
As they go, can they leave out this door? And that way we don't end up with fish against the stream there.
Okay, yeah. I'd like to recommend Mr. Pittsford's suggestion then that as you leave, you go out through this door so we can form a line through the room. So the other thing that I want to mention is that if we are not able to hear from everybody tonight, we will continue this meeting to Tuesday, October the 1st, which is 1 week from today at 5:30. And you'll be able to find out more information about that on MonroeCDO.com. So that is, if we don't get through all public comment tonight, we will continue the meeting to next Tuesday night at 5:30 p.m. October the 1st. So we do want to make sure that we have heard from everyone. So thank you. So I will now turn it over to Jackie Nestor-Jelen to do a presentation on what the CDO is all about. So Jackie.
All right, thank you, everyone.
Sorry, I'm online. I had my hand raised, so it's hard for it to be recognized. I guess, Mr. Morris, I was curious, is there a time that has been considered that we would go to before we would continue the hearing, because we have such a turnout? Did we determine a time for that?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Enright Randolph. I'll cover that in a minute after Jackie does her presentation, but I will say that the Plan Commission rules of procedure call for us to make a motion at 9 p.m. if we are still going. So at that time, I will ask somebody on the Plan Commission to make a motion whether we continue the meeting into the evening later. I would ask that we add a time to that if we go that route. The other alternative is that we would continue that meeting until October the 1st, as I mentioned, Mr. Enright Randolph. So 9 p.m. is the time we would revisit that.
Okay, so you want to wait. I was going to say if we set a time now and folks.
Well, I think we have the 9 p.m. time
close.
set as part of our rules of procedure. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Nestor-Jelen to present her findings on the CDO. So thank you, Jackie.
Thank you. So I just want to start by making sure everyone's aware of some of the resources that we have for the CDO. So www.monroecdo.com is the best location to go for the latest updates. We have on the website useful links, and I'll just note just a few items that we currently have. So you'll find the latest draft of the CDO directly accessible from the useful links. It's the first link. We are going to be reviewing tonight, as the packet stated, a version of the CDO from August 16, 2024, which is when public notice was received by the public. The draft zoning map is the next link, which is has among other things a search bar where you can type in your address and find what the property's current zoning is and what the draft zoning is. We'll be utilizing that to some extent tonight during your hearing if you bring up a specific parcel, just to give everyone a visual on the screens here and online. There's also a CDO feedback survey. So for those of you that maybe don't want to necessarily come to the podium tonight, but want to formulate some comments and bring those to us later, we are taking comment on that feedback survey. So before this meeting is ever adjourned, you have time to go ahead and put in that CDO feedback survey if you want to do it from even where you're sitting, or if you want to come up to the podium, that's another option. There's also tutorials. How to use the CDO is on the website, quick videos that you can watch, and red line versions for those of you that are interested in what's changing from the current draft to the new draft. There's also an analysis of zoning map changes, so there's going to be quite a bit of consolidation from the current zoning districts to the new zoning districts, and so you may be wondering what zoning district I may be going from or to and how that's related to the draft zoning map. It also includes area of vacant land within that each designation, as well as total acreage in each category. And then finally, there's a link to the list of CDO public comments. So we want to be transparent as possible. We want everyone to be able to see what other people's comments are, and also to make your own comments, and for those to be considered by the Plan Commission and ultimately the county commissioners. So I'll just go through a few big changes of the CDO. So first and foremost, it combines the subdivisions and zoning ordinances together and creates a new zoning map for the county. On this zoning map, it's consolidating down to 15 zoning districts, and we're reducing the number of uses from 372 to around 174. The purpose of this consolidation is to make the document easier to use. Beyond the old ordinance use consolidation list, we've even proposed several new uses, from electric vehicle charging stations to short-term renter, owner-occupied, and more. There's going to be 2 new chapters that are in the ordinance as well. This is going to be lighting as well as a Lake Lemon overlay. So those 2 things are brand new and not from the old ordinance. And then revisions are being made throughout the document in terms of use permissions, definitions, standards, and more. And each one of our planners have been, they're out in the hallway to answer any questions you might have. If you want to fine tune some of your comments tonight before you get up to the podium, we'd be happy to help you with that. So who assisted with the plan? I'll just mention again, the consultants McBride, Dale Clarion helped the planning staff. And also just in terms of planning staff, we've spent countless hours into this document, speaking to people coming in from the public in person, over the phone, people that are here tonight. I just want to make a call out that I'm just proud to work with such intelligent, caring, and responsible people. This goes to other departments that have influenced the document and the plan as well. This includes, but is not limited to, the legal department, the highway department, the stormwater program, the building department, the health department, waste reduction district, surveyor's office, GIS division, parks and recreation, and the airport. So I do appreciate each and every one of you. We're not done. We've put our best foot forward, and we're ready to hear from you and what you like, what you don't like, or anything that needs clarification or that you find confusing. So I want to just stress tonight, we do want to hear from each and every one of you. We do want to make sure that your comments are reflected and that the Plan Commission can ultimately review those comments and decide how we move this document forward. So how will your testimony tonight or online impact the CDO? You can come up to the podium tonight. That will obviously enter what you say into the record. If you hand out anything to the Plan Commission, please make sure that we get a copy, because it is official record and we will have to make that available to the public. You can also go to our MonroeCDO.com website and fill out the feedback survey, as I mentioned, under the useful links. Or if you would like, you can email us at planningoffice@co.monroe.in.us, and we will collect that as well. So we will be collecting all public comment in all of those forms and more, and we're going to be compiling those for the Plan Commission's consideration. Staff will be assisting in relating your comments to how it relates to the CDO draft. If necessary, you may have a comment and it may directly reflect an area of the ordinance that would need to be changed. And then the Plan Commission is going to direct staff on what changes to make and come back to another hearing with that revised document. So I just want to go over a quick timeline for the CDO adoption. So tonight is the hearing. This is the only statutorily required hearing. But as Jeff Morris mentioned, if we cannot get to everyone's public comment, we will continue that meeting. The first meeting that we have reserved is a date of October 1st, 2024. That's 5:30 p.m. in this same room. And then if continued from October 1st and we still need more time, it would be on October 3rd, 2024. But I want to note that until we either adjourn or continue this meeting tonight, do not leave now and assume that October 1st or October 3rd are your dates. So I do encourage you to stick around if you have comments and provide those to us if you are able. From there, it's going to go to a Plan Commission administrative meeting after staff is able to compile all of your comments and put those into some sort of matrix or spreadsheet for them to be able to edit or direct staff to edit the document. The Plan Commission will then hold a regular hearing on the CDO in its final form, with or without those comments that you've made. And at that point, if they vote to proceed it to the Board of Commissioners, staff or anyone cannot make changes to the document at that point. It goes to the Board of Commissioners for both a work session and a formal session. And at that point, if the commissioners decide to make any changes from the version that left the Plan Commission, the Plan Commission will then have to relook at the document and have 45 days to review and either make a change to it or accept as is. So that is the timeline. We don't have defined dates because, of course, we want to hear from you. We want to give time for staff and our consultants to help us consolidate all of the comments that we hear from you tonight and relate that back to the ordinance and have the Plan Commission to have enough time to deliberate and review your feedback. If you would like to make sure that you're on our listserv to get up-to-date information other than going to monroecdo.com, there is a tab called Public Input. You can press go here and fill out your name and your email. We'll make sure to email you with every meeting that I just discussed in this timeline. So I will keep this slide up for each CDO speaker. I'm going to hand it back to Jeff just for some shared understandings, but he's going to go over this as well. But just to remind you, as you come up, we will ask you a few of the same questions. So please be respectful, and we'll try to get through everyone as quickly and as we can. So Jeff, do you want to go ahead and take it from here?
Yeah, thank you, Jackie. So as Jackie mentioned, I'd like to go over a few shared understandings for our conversation tonight. So number one is this is a public hearing for the CDO. We, the Plan Commission members, are here to listen to everyone's testimony, but we will not be discussing comments tonight amongst ourselves or with speakers. All comments tonight will be added to the public record for future Plan Commission discussion. If anyone has questions, as Jackie mentioned, we have planners available outside the room at the folding tables. I would encourage anyone who has questions of planners to ask before speaking. If you need clarification on a topic, then you're free to come back in and ask your question or to get in line to speak. You're welcome to come and go from the room as you please. As we mentioned earlier, given the large crowd and the fact that we're recording and have this streamed on Teams, we ask that any conversation take place outside of the room. There's a helpful handout for each person that describes timeline and next steps after tonight's meeting, and there are copies available at the back of the room or in the rotunda on the first floor. So second understanding is if a Plan Commission member would like to ask a speaker a clarifying question, they may raise their hand after a speaker has finished and I will call on them. Plan Commissioners that are online should raise their hand and planning staff will help assist. And note that if a speaker mentions something that is not factual to the ordinance, staff are encouraged to clarify after the 3 minutes have been utilized. This is not to encourage a back and forth conversation, but rather to ensure the public leaves with accurate information. Third is each speaker will get 3 minutes. Per our rules of procedure, we kindly ask you to try to not repeat comments or keep comments that have already been made by other speakers concise. There will be a countdown clock displayed on the TVs on either side of the room or in Teams for virtual attendees. In the interest of fairness, I'll be cutting everyone off at the 3-minute mark. And out of respect for the crowd gathered tonight, I want to take comments in person for the first part of the meeting, and then we will start alternating back and forth between Teams comments and in-person comments. But I want to make sure that we give priority to the people who have gathered here tonight. So for the virtual attendees, once your name is called, your permissions will be elevated and you'll likely need to unmute your microphone. We will give you about 15 seconds to announce your name and try to speak. And if we can't hear from you within 15 seconds, we'll move on to the next person. And please feel free to try to rejoin the meeting and raise your virtual hand again. For the people here in the room that wish to speak, please line up on the wooden bench over here to my right and keep an orderly line, and let's keep several people in line so that we can keep everybody moving up to the podium in an orderly fashion. For virtual attendees, the chat has been disabled because it cannot be part of the public record. If you'd like to make a written comment, you can go to monroecdo.com and fill out the online CDO feedback survey. This is a public hearing, and so the record is anything spoken out loud or physical documents put into the record. Next shared principle is that each speaker will be asked to state their name and sign in if you're here in the room. We'll also ask if you're a county resident and whether you live inside or outside of town limits, and whether you live, work, or recreate in the county. I may ask you to spell your last name, as Plan Commission members may be taking notes to discuss later with planning staff, and we want to make sure that we have everyone's name appropriately identified. You'll also be asked to state again whether or not you're a resident of Monroe County. So before we get started, could I get a show of hands for everyone who plans to speak tonight? Okay, thank you. As we mentioned earlier, per our rules of procedure, if the meeting is still going at 9 p.m. tonight, we'll need to have a Plan Commission vote and receive majority approval by the Plan Commission in order to continue the meeting past 9 p.m. If we don't receive majority approval, we would continue the meeting to October 1st at 5:30 p.m. And that'll be both in person and online again. So before we start public comment, I would just like to remind everyone that we are all here to listen. There will be opinions shared tonight that we don't all agree with, and that's okay. I ask that we all be respectful of one another, whether we agree with an opinion that has been shared or not. We are all here because we care about Monroe County and our county's future. So I just want to clarify something that I stumbled across as I was speaking earlier. There will not be questions answered by the Plan Commission tonight, so I just want to clarify that this is a listening session. I know I stumbled over my words in one of the earlier rules of procedure, so I just wanted to mention that. So the last thing I want to announce before we turn it over to public comment is that if I see vacant seats here in the room, I will announce to those of you that are on the first floor that we have a few seats available, and welcome some of you that are downstairs to come forward. So Jackie, before I turn it over to or open it up for public comment, do you have anything else to add?
No.
Okay. Thank you. So at this point, then, I will open the meeting up for public comment. So, sir, if you wish to speak, you're first in line, okay? If the next person on the bench wishes to speak, you're welcome to come forward. Okay.
And sign in.
Ms. Pearl, if you could state your name, you'll have 3 minutes to speak, and if you could answer whether you live in city limits or outside of city limits, or what your relationship is to the county. Thank you.
Great. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great. Thanks. My name is Jen Pearl. I'm president of the Bloomington Economic Development Corporation, or BEDC. I'm also a Monroe County resident. The BEDC is a nonprofit serving all of Monroe County in attracting and growing quality jobs and promoting economic vitality. I'm here to share a white paper that was developed in response to the Planning Department's request for CDO public comments. This paper was compiled by over 80 members and partners of 6 local organizations: the BEDC, the Bloomington Board of Realtors, the Building Association of South Central Indiana, or BASCI, Habitat of Monroe County, the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce, and the Greater Ellisville Area Chamber of Commerce. Something we all share is a very deep love of our community. So these are our ideas for how the CDO can help create a thriving community now and into the future. The paper is largely based on the CDO draft posted on September 11th, but may include input from earlier versions. Commissioners have hard copies. For a digital version, you can also scan the QR code on one of our copies, or you could find it at bloomingtonedc.com under the news section. That's at bloomingtonedc.com under news. Wading into the content, Section 1 highlights how the CDO can help us address community needs. Monroe County is a regional hub for talent with over 93,000 individuals, and while roughly 17% of our workforce commutes into the county, our largest employers report that half of their staff come from surrounding counties, which is kind of a big opportunity for us here. However, our workforce for the county is currently shrinking. According to the IU Indiana Business Research Center, Indiana's overall population growth is projected to slow, and the county projections are more stark. Our over 65 population is projected to grow by almost 48% from 2020 to 2050, an increase of 9,400 individuals. Our prime working age population, however, aged 25 to 54, is projected to shrink at 4.4%. And our population under age 20 is expected to shrink by 10% over that period. The great news is that our community has tools and assets to help shift these trends. Through land use and planning, the CDO can facilitate the growth of quality jobs, better wages, attainable housing, all paving the way for Monroe County's brighter future, especially as we face these challenges. During public comment today, our colleagues will highlight different portions of the white paper, including broad feedback on the CDO's direction and chapter-by-chapter notes. We welcome the opportunity to discuss any of these ideas further. And finally, thank you to the Monroe County Planning Department and the Monroe County Plan Commission for all of your time, talent, and multiple years of work that's been put into the CDO. We appreciate your service to our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Pearl. Sir, you're up next. If you could sign in and state your name.
Signed in on the top sign. I'm the first signer on here. Like
Okay.
the first signer of the independence. We need another independence. My name is Phil Grott, and I live here in Bloomington. Last time I was in this room, we had about the same turnout because we were doing the same thing, protesting needless tax of food and beverage, which they put up claim for a convention center. All I hear is paper rattling on that. I've not heard of anything other than them collecting the money, and I can't even find out how much money they've been collecting. So my question is, what are you going to do with the old buildings when you build the new ones? You tear them down like everything else you're tearing down in town? Has anyone, how much thought gone into the logistics of having to move people? So moving the courts, that's going to add to it. There are all types of costs in there that probably have been skimmed over. And what I ask of you folks here and any of you listening, it doesn't matter what they vote here. We got a vote coming up in a couple of weeks. That's where you show them what you think about their planning. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate your comments. Next up, if you could sign in and state your name and state whether you reside within the city or outside city limits.
Yep. My name's Ryan Langley. I live in the county outside of city limits. Yep. Am I on the clock? Okay. Again, I'm Ryan Langley. I'm the branch manager for Ruoff Mortgage here in Bloomington, speaking on behalf of the white paper document that each of you received. I've been with Ruoff for 10 plus years and in the mortgage banking field for over 20. I was born and raised here in Bloomington, also former elected official on county council. So I spent a lot of late nights here in this room. So I have some appreciation for what you guys are doing. So I'm here to represent, from a lending perspective, some of the struggles that potential buyers are encountering when applying for a mortgage. We are currently facing levels of unaffordability that we've not seen in nearly 40 years. If I could draw your attention to the right-hand side of page 6, you will see the down payment requirements and monthly payment estimates for a 30-year conventional mortgage and a FHA 30-year fixed with 3.5% down, priced on a median priced home in Monroe County, which is $318,500. For those that are following along, you can pull this up if you got the QR code earlier. On page 7, we have created scenarios for borrowers with a median household income of $65,000, which is the median household. That's not a single person. That is a household of $65,043. To help illustrate the challenges some potential home buyers face, we are providing examples of borrowers who have low monthly debt of $300, mid debt of $600, and high debt of $1,200. Looking at those scenarios, you can see that in only one of them could we qualify a borrower, and that's for FHA financing if they have the 3.5% down to qualify. An FHA loan would require 51% of their gross income. That would be their combined debts. To break it down even further, that would be 68% of their net income. Net income being what they actually bring home after they pay their taxes. In this scenario, this household would be left with $1,300 a month or $300 a week, for things like electric, gas, cell phone, internet, cable, water, groceries, and everyday essential items. Perhaps for just a household of one, that is within their range. But for anyone that may be feeding more than one mouth or have to run their kids up and down the road to baseball or soccer practice, we know that $300 a week doesn't go very far. You're probably already aware, but in lending, we qualify our borrowers based on their qualified gross income, not their net. I wanted to highlight the net income because it's often overlooked and is important when it comes to the affordability of life. As a lender, we only calculate for things like mortgage payment, HOA dues, installment loans, credit cards, and student loans, even if they are in deferment. If a borrower has $50,000 in school debt, but not making any payments on them, we still have to count either 0.5% or 1% towards their total debt to income, depending on the loan program. So you can see how adding a $250 or $500 monthly payment to their already auto loans or credit card debt,
Mr. Langley,
it's
I'm
not going
sorry,
to go
but-
very far.
I'm sorry, but your 3 minutes are up. We appreciate you speaking tonight.
All right, thank you.
Hi there. If you could sign in, state your name, and then state whether you're a county resident within city limits or outside of city limits, we would appreciate it.
My name is Wendy Goodlett. I live in Monroe County, but outside of city limits, and I'm here tonight representing Habitat for Humanity of Monroe County. I'm also speaking on the white paper and will be continuing in Section 1A. Talent, attraction, housing, and job growth go hand in hand. Our community's ability to provide attainable housing is central to attracting and retaining both the employers and talent needed to make our community vibrant. Labor shortages were named the #1 workforce issue for 2024, followed by affordable housing and upskilling. Why worry about jobs and housing if our working age population is shrinking? The central challenge ahead of us is not about population growth. At a most basic level, it is about ensuring that we have sufficient replacement population and talent to ensure community succession planning while caring for our older neighbors. This is to maintain our current level of economic vitality while raising quality of life for our currently struggling neighbors. It also enables us to ensure our children can build their futures here, something that is currently out of reach for my own children in this county. Isn't there enough current and planned housing? The answer is absolutely not. The CDO impacts land use for possibly decades to come. Therefore, it's critical to signal where housing can go to guide future development. Current supply is low. A 3.6-month supply of housing inventory was on the market in Monroe County in August 2024. Less than 6 months of supply pushes housing prices up rapidly, which is what we have been and are currently experiencing. We need greater diversity of housing type for the future. The county's urbanizing area plan calls for promoting diverse housing choices. We currently have a housing shortage for all sectors except student housing. Different types of homes are needed for workers, families, empty nesters, and retirees. Although other new developments in Bloomington and Ellettsville are moving forward, these projects do not fully address the spectrum of needs. This is a challenge that will require participation by all. It is not a them problem. It is imperative that the county enact policies that focus on needed housing sectors and encourage home ownership and neighborhood opportunities that no longer exist inside the city. The effect of squeezing this type of housing out by policy with companion economics for feasible development pushes these families and community members to find housing outside of the county. This diminishes our tax base, adds commuters on the roadways, and causes the county to become stagnant when we should be envisioning vibrancy for the future. Land and development costs rise exponentially when policies push out housing with reduced opportunities for building. Programs that promote affordability, like Habitat for Humanity, cannot operate in an environment where large lot zoning precludes neighborhood development. Land that is expensive and cannot be platted to accommodate affordable sized lots for families to own perpetuates income disparities in our community.
Sorry to interrupt you, Ms. Goodlett. Your time is up, but thank you for coming out tonight to speak. You could sign in, state your first and last name, and whether you live, work, or recreate in the county, we'd appreciate it. Thank you.
I'm Sally Baird, and I live in Monroe County outside of city limits. I'm the current board president of the Bloomington Board of Realtors and a broker at Sterling Real Estate. I'm also speaking on the white paper presented this evening, specifically page 10. The CDO is critical to helping address the current needs of our community while attracting and retaining talent to help us maintain a vibrant place to live. Key factors that attract and retain talent in a community include ample career opportunities, affordable cost of living, and high quality of life. My job puts me in the unique position of meeting people when they're in the process of deciding whether or not to move to Monroe County. Many come to me already excited about what they've heard. The conversation quickly turns to housing, and many are surprised by the cost of housing and the lack of affordable housing options. These are clients with professional jobs, nurses, teachers, police officers, contractors. They're qualified buyers who are anxious to put down roots and start investing in Monroe County. But in the past few years, the number of houses I've sold outside of Monroe County to people working in Monroe County has increased substantially. For most, it is their preference to work and live in Monroe County, but the cost of housing and lack of housing has forced them to broaden their search to our surrounding counties. There are many community benefits to having attainable housing and quality employment in Monroe County. Improved quality of life by reducing longer commutes, which is a savings in transit and time for workers. Improved environmental sustainability by reducing longer commutes, which results in a lower footprint of carbon dioxide emissions. Limiting sprawl from workers looking further afield for affordable homes. Increased ability to attract and retain talent. Our larger employers are also reporting more staff commuting from outside of the community, which poses a challenge for them to attract and retain those staff long-term. Revenue for local government. It is highly beneficial to local government revenues when residents, workers, and employers stay within the county. Diversification and growth is the best way for communities to stay financially afloat or even grow their financial health and to maintain a quality of life that attracts new and retains existing Monroe County residents. Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your feedback. Sir, welcome. If you could state your first and last name, whether you live, work, or recreate in the county.
Hello, my name is Eric Spoonmore. I'm a Monroe County resident, not in the city limits. I am president of the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce, and these remarks are my own tonight, although some of this will overlap with a lot of what is in the white paper. I first want to thank all of the members of the public. You know, I was a member of the county council for 6 years, 2 years of which I was president. I have never seen this room so full of concerned citizens, and I hope you all will take this feedback into account, especially our elected officials who are known frequently to overturn your recommendations. So I want to address some concerns that we have with the CDO. Again, all of which are reflected in the white paper. First, current CDO is based on a comprehensive plan from 2012, decade old. It's a little problematic. We need to update the comprehensive plan to prevent development that's guided by project decisions. Without an updated comp plan, the CDO functions as an operating system without overarching principles. We need to ensure that the CDO is fully aligned with its guiding documents, including the comprehensive plan and urbanizing area plans. Second, the latest draft of the CDO is close to 500 pages, and multiple iterations have been posted in August and in September 2024. This has made it extraordinarily difficult and challenging to review the many unforeseen updates. Residents and businesses would benefit from ample opportunity to fully understand what's in the document and respond to the latest version. And third, one of our most significant concerns relates to how the CDO would impede the community's goals of achieving more attainable housing for our workers. This is because limited land for housing can drive up the price of land. Restrictions in the code can add to construction costs, which increase home prices. And larger residential lots could lead to further sprawl conditions that are inefficient for the provision of government services. I don't think this is a radical view. And as you know, residential development is included among the key priorities and principles of the comprehensive plan and urbanizing area plans, which guide the CDO. One of the CDO project goals is to, quote, follow the vision, goals, and objectives of the comprehensive plan and encourage economic, environmentally friendly, and socially sustainable development. That's a quote from the comp plan. Also, the urbanizing area plan suggests several approaches to housing diversity, including greater density from the construction of multifamily, attached homes, patio homes, and cottage homes. It recognizes that older households are wanting to downsize, while new households are generally decreasing in size from previous generations. The urbanizing area plan also references several fiscal benefits of greater housing density, including reducing the upfront costs of infrastructure, generating more property tax per acre, and minimizing the per unit cost of government services. And then finally, the proposed CDO zoning map shows fewer smaller parcels of land available. Smaller parcels would allow more affordable residential development, and smaller minimum lot sizes helps reduce the per lot cost of infrastructure, which in turn leads to lower prices for homes, which we desperately need in Monroe County. Thank you, and commissioners, we'll see you tomorrow for the discussion on the jail.
Thank you, Mr. Spoonmore.
Eric, you took the sign-in sheet. Sorry.
We'll get a new sign-in sheet. Thank you.
Go ahead and sign the next copy.
There's no paper here.
Good.
My name is Mary Jane Hall, and I reside in Bloomington. I am a past president of the Bloomington Board of Realtors, broker at FC Tucker. I'm speaking on behalf of the white paper you have, and generally speaking to pages 15 to 17. I'll begin with sewer options, always a thrill, but we have a sewer conundrum in Monroe County. We do not have enough sewer capacity to sustain us going into the future. And the comprehensive plan says Monroe County shall encourage the provision of sanitary sewers to our designated communities. So, how indeed will we do that if there's no means to do it in the CDO? Because the CDO does not permit additional sewerage, only septic systems, which in fact are not the most environmentally responsible source of wastewater treatment. So we need to consider the need for our community to have additional sewer facilities. Regional sewers would certainly be an option. We have an issue in addition with sliding scale subdivisions. I'm sure that many larger landowners feel that their property values are constrained by the sliding scale subdivisions. This is where a parcel may be subdivided from a larger piece of land, and then that parent parcel has a deed restriction for 25 years. So if there are health issues going forward or whatever with the owners of the parent parcel, they are constrained from selling it without that deed restriction. And so if you are farming and are suddenly unable to continue to farm the land, you have a deed restriction on your property that you cannot sell it to someone who isn't going to use it for agricultural purposes. This is a restriction on their property rights as homeowners, property owners. The CDO therefore definitely affects property values. We have a 1 acre requirement for septic, and then the sliding scale to further constrain the ability of people to subdivide in any way. We also need to provide for clear permitting process. There is too much murkiness, both presently and going forward with the CDO. We need to have more things that are clear and by right, so that people know exactly what they can or cannot do with the land, especially those who are current landowners and have questions about how they're going to be able to move forward with their property. How am I going to live in this house? I do not know. I cannot tell. So much clearer provisions for their futures. And on 17, there is a very nice chart of how people feel, what their response is to our existing offerings in our county. Offerings is not exactly the right word. I'm sorry about that.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but your 3 minutes are up. So thank you for
Thank you
coming
very
out
much.
tonight.
And I'll sign in now.
Thank you. Sir, if you could state your first name, last name, whether you live, work, or recreate in the county, and then sign in on the sign-in sheet, we would appreciate it.
Good evening. My name's Clark Greiner. I live outside of Monroe County. I work for the BEDC. I'm speaking on the white paper, section 1C, pages 18 through 21, if you'd like to follow along. And these are broad recommendations. Monroe County can set a course for a thriving future while steering clear of unintended consequences for workforce, housing, and jobs through updates to the comprehensive plan and the CDO. We submit the following recommendations, including suggestions that run parallel to the CDO. So 1, create a shared vision and update the comprehensive plan. Comprehensive plans are crucial and guiding land use decisions to meet community needs for housing, employment, preservation in a proactive way. 2, consider a regional position when updating the CDO and comprehensive plan, because Monroe County is a regional hub and a regional lens is also needed across the comprehensive plan and the CDO to ensure land use complements employment, workforce needs, and those realities. Therefore, we recommend communicating with other local governments, planning departments to ensure coordination across jurisdiction as we work to meet our community needs. 3, extend the time to review the CDO and to create an interim update period. Given the length of the CDO and the short turnaround on the postings and the latest versions, we also recommend 1, extending the CDO review period to ensure the community can review and understand it, and 2, creating an interim period after its initial adoption to allow for additional revisions. Number 4, measure CDO impact on property values and local government revenue. Zoning changes will inevitably impact property values. We recommend that the Monroe County evaluate how property values are impacted by changes in the CDO to understand the impact on 1, individual properties, and then 2, local government revenue. 5, we want to update the CDO and maps to address the housing needs through addressing and updating the zoning map and the CDO to include, but not limited to, the following. A, increase the number of small parcels that are retained to retain the expanded numbers of smaller parcels for residential use. 5B, eliminate the sliding scale subdivision 25-year moratorium to enable a greater number of small parcels so that property owners can have greater flexibility in how they use their property to mitigate significant impact on their property values. 5C, revise right-of-ways and setbacks by right approvals and a minimum lot size affecting septic fields. 5D, redistribute housing density that is lost to floodplains. 5E, allow for by right zoning to enable more predictability of development. Number 6, facilitate infrastructure development through the CDO and other processes. Continuously enhance vital infrastructure like broadband, sewer, water, as housing employment expansion is best situated close to these infrastructures. And this can be done by...
Sorry to interrupt, your time is up, but thank you for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
Heather, if you could state your first, last name, sign in, and then state whether you live, work, or recreate in the county.
Good evening. My name's Heather Groves. I'm a lifelong county resident living within the city limits currently. I'm a broker at Sterling Real Estate and member of the Bloomington Board of Realtors, as well as past president of our MLS board. I'm also representing the white paper put together for this evening's meeting. I will be presenting on section 2, which is the beginning of chapter by chapter feedback and recommendations from our group. Our Chapter 800 recommendations are to consider revising the following purposes: to facilitate the adequate provision of transportation, water, sewage, schools, parks, and other public facilities, and to promote development of affordable housing within the county. Our Chapter 801 recommendations are related to the transition between the current zoning and the new CDO. We have concerns that it will not be very clear on properties that are currently in process. We'd like to see very clear guidance on what will happen to those projects that are approved but not completed, and the applications that are already in process but not approved. We recommend anything that can be done to help applicants understand this transition, where they stand, and how to ensure their application is complete and up to date given the transition. Please clearly post and communicate this process. We believe the streamlined, shorter list establishing the zones is much clearer and easier to navigate than the older, longer list of zones. As someone who uses that table almost daily, we really appreciate the improvements when sending that on to consumers. Our Chapter 805 recommendations, which all pertain to the residential zoning districts, are to remove or modify the following language to ensure greater flexibility for adding housing. The need for expanding this district beyond the areas designated on the official zone maps on the date of the adoption of the zoning regulations is discouraged. Our second recommendation in this chapter is to see more residential zoning within smaller lot sizes throughout the county to make housing more accessible due to the high cost of land. Our third recommendation in this chapter pertains to the permitted use tables. ADUs currently are only permitted in rural zones on large lots, which make them more expensive with fewer in stock. It would be ideal for them to be permitted in more urbanized areas as well to ensure more efficient use of the developed land. Our fourth recommendation in this chapter is to look at transportation plans and ensure that more dense residential areas are centralized along transportation corridors, or to ensure that transit can be extended to those areas to best serve its new residents. Our fifth recommendation in this chapter is to provide zoning to increase housing options for seniors and address the shifting demographic needs in our community. Thank you.
Thank you. You could sign in, state your first and last name, and then state whether you live, work, or recreate in the county. We would appreciate it.
My name is Kari Bennett. I live outside of the county and I commute into the county for my job. I'm Housing Solutions Director for Habitat for Humanity of Monroe County. I'm speaking on the white paper also. My comments are going to focus on recommendations in part of Chapter 805 and also in Chapter 806. In my role, I spend a good amount of time doing what I call zoning math, seeing how many buildable lots we can fit on a parcel of property. These are critical calculations for affordable housing. As the costs of land and infrastructure development increase, it is imperative that we maximize the number of homes that can be built on a piece of property. Two of the residential zones, low development residential and community development residential, do not allow Monroe County residents to maximize the number of homes that can be built per acre of property. The minimum lot size for low development residential is 0.34 acres. That equates to 2.9 lots per acre. That means that 1 acre of land can only be divided into 2 lots. There is a balance of 0.32 acres. I have given all of you a one-page handout that shows some illustrations that you can follow along. The top box on the handout illustrates this situation. If the minimum lot size is reduced by 1/100th of an acre to 0.33 acres, it is possible to divide 1 acre of land into 3 lots with only a balance of 1/100th of an acre. That is the second box on the handout. The minimum lot size for community development residential is 0.21 acres. That equates to 4.76 lots per acre, which means that 1 acre of land can only be divided into 4 lots. And then there's a balance of 0.16 acres. The third box on my handout illustrates that situation. If the minimum lot size is once again reduced by 1/100th of an acre to 0.2 acres, it is possible to divide 1 acre of land into exactly 5 lots. The final box on the handout illustrates this scenario. Let's review the size of 1/100th of an acre. That is 435 square feet. That is an area approximately 22 feet by 20 feet. It's probably very similar to the area that you are sitting in right now. To allow Monroe County residents the opportunity to maximize the number of homes that can be built, on their property, we urge you to lower the minimum lot sizes of both low development and community development residential zones by 1/100th of an acre. Speaking also on sewer service, I would like to start by saying that we appreciate that the prohibition on expanded wastewater treatment facilities that was in the August 16th version has been removed in more recent versions.
And I'm sorry to interrupt you, Ms. Bennett. Your 3 minutes are up, but thank you for speaking tonight. Hi there.
Thank you. This is Christopher M.G. from the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce. Good evening. I am a Monroe County resident, a Bloomington homeowner stuck in a 950 square foot home. Tonight, I'm going to talk about the CDO Chapter 807, which is the business zoning districts. We're going to be looking at limited business LB districts and general business GB. I want to compliment the staff, especially Ms. Jalen, on her responsiveness. There's some good things within that section. For best practices, there's cohesive grouping and access control there. The ordinance focused on grouping businesses and providing interior cross-access aligns with best practices. The approach reduces traffic congestion, improves safety by minimizing highway entry and exit points. And environmental protection, what this does is reflects our commitment to the environment-sensitive areas with a thoughtful approach that does sustainable development, ensuring new business does not negatively impact things we care about like floodplains, watersheds, and other critical areas. The LB district, the setbacks in the 9/11/24 update improved to 25 feet, which is helpful. Where we have some concerns on the white paper, and if you follow along on page 26, is the cumbersome setbacks. The minimum front yard setbacks, particularly in the GB district, may be seen as overly restrictive. For example, requiring 70 to 150 feet setbacks from the road center line can significantly reduce usable land, especially for small, medium-sized businesses, which means small, medium-sized business need flexibility. In some areas, these setbacks can also run into ridge tops and high slopes where one cannot build. This could limit development opportunities and discourage business growth in those zones. So a concern is the setbacks combined with the 1 acre minimum for septic can render certain lots just unusable. So the question remains, how many properties have gone into the up zone or a down zone? And then the question is, what is the process will the county follow if that zoning changes causes land to become, say, less developable, maybe even lose value? So the second concern is the comparative overreach. So when we compare the previous standards to the increases in minimum setbacks, it could be viewed as that overreach. This shift seems more stringent, may not align with the needs of businesses, especially in areas where space is limited and where prior standards were sufficient for safety and aesthetic purposes. And then third, the pre-existing businesses, the PB zone is disappearing, either going to business or residential, depending on the current use. Have all these business owners weighed in on these changes for their properties? So the recommendations would be to reevaluate those setbacks. Reducing the front yard setback requirements, particularly in the GB district, would be a development more feasible without compromising the ordinance's intent. A balanced approach, possibly reverting previous standards in certain areas, would encourage more business growth and, again, flexibility and application. Introducing more flexible and setbacks and requirement, perhaps through conditional waivers based on specific site conditions or business needs, would prevent the ordinance from being overly rigid and promote a more friendly business environment.
And I'm sorry to interrupt, but your 3 minutes.
And then create a process for revisiting the CDO. Thank you for your time tonight.
Thank you. Hi there, if you could state your name, sign in, and state whether you live, work, or recreate in the county. Thank you.
Yes. Hello, my name is Sylvia McNair. I live in Monroe County inside the city limits, and I'm here this evening in support of Habitat for Humanity. When We Walk By, written by Kevin Adler and Donald Burness, is a book about the crisis in America referred to as homelessness. The women in my book group working our way through this book struggle with how we can help. What can we actually do to make a difference in our community? We feel helpless. No matter how much we give or how much we do, the problem persists. There is a dearth of affordable housing in this country. Costs of construction are sky high, yes, but zoning restrictions also contribute to the problem. Requiring larger lot sizes, 2.5 to 5 acres, for example, makes purchasing land more expensive. Restricting high-density housing and limiting infrastructure expansion, like public sewers, prevents growth of affordable neighborhoods. The County Development Ordinance will substantially impact Habitat for Humanity's ability to build affordable housing in Monroe County. Without revisions, the zoning rules will exacerbate the housing crisis here, drive up costs, and make it even more difficult for middle and low-income families to have a home. There are so many things to love about Habitat, but the thing I love most is that they do not give handouts. The homes I have helped build, 5 now, are assigned to families who will not only invest sweat equity, but will pay Habitat back with mortgages they can afford. And we all know that families who are housed are healthier, they take pride in their neighborhoods, and their children do better in school. You have an advantage over the women in my book group because you can make a difference. You can choose to make land available so that Habitat can continue to build. Please, please make the revisions necessary in the County Development Ordinance to increase the availability of affordable land so that Habitat can continue to do their most important work. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Good evening. My name is Jason Bell. I'm the Executive Director of the Builders Association. I live in the county outside the city. I work and, what'd you say, recreate here as well. So I'm going to cover the white paper as well. It is Section 809, the Airport Zoning District. One of the recommendations we have is enable the development of wastewater treatment independent of the City of Bloomington utilities to ensure land at the Monroe County Airport can be developed. Another recommendation that we have is the district character in the purpose section states the zoning district shall be limited to parcels located within the proximity to the airport. It may be helpful to include language to the effect of within the boundaries of the airport and surrounding properties that are identified within the FAA protection zone guidelines. For instance, in the runway protection zone, there are building height and proximity restrictions for structures. The recommendation is to include some language acknowledging those rules. This could also be added footnote number 8 in the AP summary of dimensional standards section stating if the property resides within the runway protection zone as established by the FAA, all structures, primary and accessories must conform to the more stringent of the FAA or Monroe CDO standards. Also refer to Section 811, use regulations. Recommendation is to develop an appeal process for applications that are denied for planning investments to improve the neighborhood. Also, facade improvements should be spelled out on all building sides, front sides, and back. If not already part of the process, ensure that use determination forms are evenly employed and applied, and also include real estate sales in business zones. I'd also like to ask for adding more public dates for the public input after October 3rd if public turnout continues to allow all residents of Monroe County to speak so you can hear their voice. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Bell.
Hi, good evening.
Hi there.
My name is Beth Robinson, and I'm here representing myself. I am a realtor. I've been a builder and a developer all over the past 34 years. I am a lifelong county resident. I currently reside in the county, and I'm going to speak on the white paper, number 811, use regulations, and that has to do with sewer. Right now, we're in an impasse with the city on sewer. We cannot build in the county.
Can you put your mic just a little bit closer to you? I apologize.
Thank you. Sorry, I have a problem. But we cannot build any density in the county right now with the sewer issue. So that's our largest concern right now. Our recommendation is to have wastewater treatment facilities should be permitted in non-residential zones and conditional in residential zone. Water treatment facilities should be permitted in all zones, and the zoning cards in chapters 804 to 809 should be updated to be consistent with these revisions. In chapter 811, recommendations on land use not listed in the CDO, understanding this was removed from previous drafts. It would still be helpful to add some type of process for assessing land use not listed in the CDO rather than assuming it is not permitted. We need to do something with our sewer issues, whether it is packaging plants, it's the county taking an initiative. Right now, we have the highest priced homes in the state of Indiana, and that is not something to be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you. I do want to recognize our community members who are online. So what I'd like to do is get through the 4 people that are standing, and then at that point begin alternating between in-person and virtual attendees. So if you're online and wish to speak, please go ahead and raise your virtual hand, and after the next 4 speakers, we'll begin alternating between in-person and online. So I do want to recognize the people who have been waiting patiently. So ma'am, if you'd like to go ahead and come forward.
My name is Tammy Druckmiller. I am a county resident. I live outside of the county. I'm speaking on the white paper on behalf of Baskey, particularly page 32, chapter overview 813, asking the question to give a recommendation for allowing smaller lot sizes while there are still few that are larger sizes, and we'd like to see those smaller. And also on page 32, 815, lighting. While it's not a major concern for most commercial properties to use photogenics, it just requires the plan to show how bright it is and not exceed the limits for commercial properties. So we'd like it to be helpful if you could list the lights. And then another recommendation and question we have, is there any lighting for security required if a business is open after dark? There should be a minimum standard we feel applied to anything under commercial standards and multifamily occupancy. And that is all I have to speak about. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out tonight. We appreciate it.
Hi, good evening. My name is Alicia Schott. I'm a Monroe County live-in, work-in resident outside of the city limits. I'm representing myself at CMG Home Loans as a senior loan officer there and Baskey as a member of the board of directors. I'm speaking on the white paper represented this evening on number 816, for landscaping. We have some recommendations, and those include the following. Modify the buffer requirements to allow for context-sensitive designs that consider the size and shape of the property, as well as the type of adjacent land uses. This flexibility would enable better land use without sacrificing the benefits of those buffers. Secondly, introduce incentives such as tax breaks or grants for natural plants or businesses that go beyond the minimum landscaping requirements or implement innovative solutions. This approach would encourage voluntary compliance without imposing undue financial burdens. Additionally, allow for the tree plantings and preservation elsewhere on a property as an offset, which could be beneficial for large lots in the county. It is ideal to preserve the existing tree canopy for many reasons. At the same time, it's important to balance preservation with land use for things like attainable housing. We've heard tonight there's a very big demand for that. I see it daily. For example, if you have a 50-acre site that has a 50% tree canopy today, 25 acres that is, they would have to preserve 17.5 acres of the tree canopy at 35% of the site. That's a fair bit of this, as it seems. Lastly, we recommend to expand the list of approved species or provide a mechanism for businesses to propose alternative plants that meet the ordinance's goals. This change would make compliance easier and much more cost-effective for businesses. It would also be helpful to incorporate the Indiana native list from an existing agency. Using our friends, we have them, such as an Indiana Native Plant Society. These lists get updated regularly. If the ordinance automatically refers to this list, the ordinance does not have to be constantly updated, nor would we have to continue meeting. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, ma'am.
Got to bring this back up a little bit. My name is Jim Dory, and I live in the county outside the city. I'm currently on Fourth Phase Technology. I am on the board of the Building Association and Executive Board. I am also the Vice President of Downtown Bloomington, so I'm looking way forward to the new convention center. What I want to talk about today is the 606 karst and sinkhole development. It would be very helpful to have the county MS4 present why these standards were set. Understanding the CDO must align with the stormwater ordinance, it would be helpful to update the stormwater ordinance to address the above concerns. The language would need to be clear and on who identifies sinkholes, such as engineers, certified geologists, and have a sinkhole, how it is defined. Second of all, Section 831, types of subdivisions. Recommendations for us are recommending removing the 25-year moratorium since the minimum lot sizes are in place. This would mitigate significant impact on property values and help clarify what the property can be used for long term. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening. My name is Marvin Olmert. I live outside the city limits. I'm the Monroe County Farm Bureau Incorporated president. We represent over 3,000 members in our community for property rights and agricultural rights throughout not only here but also state and federal issues. Some things I find concerning is on this proposed CDO, I would like confirmation on the definition of accessory livestock that doesn't show up in ag zoning district and is only in place for residential zoning. That is not clear in this. Most states and federal regulatory agencies do not consider cattle and swine equal. Utilizing standard animal unit calculation, which is used by IDEM and US EPA, 1 cow equals 1 animal unit. Swine over 55 pounds equals 0.4 animal units. Swine 15 to 55 pounds equal 0.1 animal units. Sheep and lambs equal 0.1 animal units. Based on these calculations, swine should be considered a medium livestock versus large animal livestock. So are you resetting what the US EPA and IDEM has considered animals and how they're regulated? Small livestock, I have to assume that this will put pressure on folks wanting to have eggs that likely already have have the chickens already. Chicken can get a reduction setback of 20 foot, but what are they setting back from? It's not stated. Number 2, the setback for containment shall be the minimum of 50 foot. 50 foot from what? Could this be considered a talking point, or what are we taking it from? Not having a fence or a property line is not only to create more issue, but isn't normal practice for most livestock production. Number 4, domestic animals can be a resident make the argument that my pigs or my chickens are pets, thus the ordinance doesn't apply. They could be emotional support animals. Who is going to enforce this ordinance? As well as what is the cost of noncompliance? In my opinion, this will only put additional costs on the county. We have folks looking for property tax relief from both farmland and residential taxes. Less property tax revenue continues in municipalities while trying to enforce more regulations. Also, when we look at agricultural events cannot accommodate more than 300 guests and be limited to 40 days a year, who is going to regulate this? And none of these events can begin before 10 a.m. So if you have people coming to your farm to watch a live birth of an animal, we can't tell them an animal whenever something's going to be born. What about field days for soil and water and different types of activities to better take care of our property and also protect our groundwater? So these are just some things that Indiana Farm Bureau and myself have came up with on this ordinance, and thank you for your time.
Can we get his name again? I did not get his name.
Sir, could you state your name again before you leave?
Marvin Obit. Marvin Obit.
Altman?
Obit.
Yeah.
U-L-M-E-T. Thank you.
Thank you,
and
sir.
His first name's Marvin?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, I'd like to go to our first virtual attendee tonight who has his hand raised. Mr. John Fernandez, if you could be promoted to a presenter and unmute, we'd like to hear from you. If you could state,
Thank you.
My name is John Fernandez. I am a resident of the city of Bloomington and Monroe County. I wanted to join tonight to specifically oppose the proposed downzoning of the property owned by my client at 3500 South Snotty Road. The proposed designation for this property is RES. We believe that the appropriate zoning for this property should be high development residential, quote, HD, unquote, zoning district. Just to read from your proposed ordinance, the HD district is defined as that which is primarily intended for residential development in an urban service area where public sewer service is available and near amenities such as grocery stores, schools, residential areas, etc. A quick history on this property. This property was previously in one of the areas intended for annexation. In 2006, the owners of the property entered into agreement with the city of Bloomington, whereby they transferred land, which is now known as the Rogers Family Farm, to the city of Bloomington. And as part of that agreement, the city agreed to adopt the RS zoning designation as part of their 2007 UDO update for the Snotty Road property. Additionally, the CBU also agreed to provide water and sewer services to this property. This CBU service agreement remains in effect today. And so this property was zoned RS under the city zone in 2007. And it should be noted that the city's RS zoning at that time permitted 4 units an acre. Well, when the county adopted its current zoning ordinance, it assumed jurisdiction for these areas that were previously designated as AFAs. The current map for this property states that it's RS/AFA. Note that the current county zoning ordinance does not include an RS zoning district. In addition to that zoning adoption, the current zoning ordinance actually includes language that says that in addition to the zones and overlay districts provided above in that particular section of the ordinance, says that the Monroe County zoning ordinance incorporates those sections of the city of Bloomington zoning ordinance which would apply to the zoning effective of those areas of the county formerly under the Bloomington's planning and zoning jurisdiction and control. So the existing zoning is RS as defined by the city. This downzoning would substantially diminish the value of this property, and we believe it may rise to the level of regulatory taking. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fernandez. Sir, if you'd like to come forward, you're up next. If you could state your first name, last name, and whether you live, work, or recreate in the county.
I'm Joe Van Deventer. I live in Washington Township outside the county. A lifelong resident of Monroe County. I oppose the CDO in its current state. You know, the fact that we're sitting here talking about how many chickens you can have shows us where we're at. You know, you've heard from the business world here tonight. You've heard from the realtors. You've heard from the ag community, and I'm not sure who you consulted with, though you didn't consult with your taxpayers. You didn't consult with the Monroe County people that this is affecting, obviously. That's why you have the crowd here tonight. I think when we talk about affordable housing, that depends on how big your paycheck is. I think we should put this energy into attracting businesses here, make housing more affordable. You know, the land restrictions, you know, it don't take into account, you know, folks wanting to give a grandchild a lot or a child or a mother-in-law that needs to move home. I don't think we should keep adding these restrictions at a time when we're taxing people more every year and their land options are going down. This would bring their land values down. And on a farmer, if they try to follow your rules, it could bring their income down. So, thank you.
Thank you, sir, for coming out tonight. Okay, I'd like to go to our next virtual guest at this time. Dave and Patty Bush, you're up next. If you could unmute, state your first and last name and whether you live, work, or recreate in the county.
Hello, this is Patty Bush, and I live in the county. My name is Patty Bush, and I have lived south of 4691 South Victor Pike for 25 years. I'm concerned by the increased density proposed within the CDO draft to 4691 South Victor Pike, zoned as CD, Community Development Residential. An acre would allow 4 to 5 units, greatly increasing impervious surfaces. The EPA and USGS agree. Impervious surfaces associated with urbanization reduce infiltration and increase surface water runoff. An article by Penn State Extension says, when more than 10 to 20% of a watershed has impervious cover, that doubles the amount of runoff. Clear Creek's critical watershed is experiencing flooding, which is adversely affecting this area. We have experienced property damage and loss of land use. I have expressed my concerns to the County Drainage Board, as have other residents from Clear Creek. The Q100 detention basins required for developments within Monroe County may slow the flow rate of stormwater runoff, however, are inadequate for rain events like February 2019 and June 2021, as stated by the MS4 coordinator, and they do not decrease stormwater volume. Please, zone 4691 South Victor Pike as residential. More green space reduces flooding. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Bush. We appreciate you speaking tonight. Our next in-person guest is welcome to come to the podium. If you could state your first and last name and whether you live, work, or recreate in the county. And please sign in also.
Signed it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's
Thank you.
nothing here to sign.
Perfect, thank
I think
you.
it's going around. Tracy Lutz, I live and work in Monroe County. I'm a past president of the Bloomington Board of Realtors and past president of Monroe County Home Builders and commissioner with the Monroe County Housing Authority. From that experience, I can tell you, especially with the Housing Authority, a need for housing in this community and how difficult it is for people. When I pulled the numbers comparing Monroe County to the state average from the Indiana Association Realtors Data Center, I was shocked to see how much different Monroe County is than the rest of the state. When comparing our housing costs from August 2023 to August 2024, Monroe County's average home cost was 6% higher than the state average. The statewide average was 4% appreciation during that time period, but we appreciated by 10%. A major cause of this is the lack of new construction and housing in Monroe County. This shortage is primarily due to the county zoning regulations and shows how these restrictions are impacting the cost of housing in this county. And now you want to restrict land use even further. Recently, you denied approval for the project on Victor Pike, and a lot of your rationale was based on traffic and the roads handling more traffic. You didn't acknowledge or mention that Gordon Pike connection will be completed soon, and that will take the bulk of the traffic from that road and Victor Pike. That should eliminate a lot of traffic concerns. Now you want to limit new housing even further by decreasing the amount of available residential land. You want to take a county that currently allows 9.9% of its land, just 9.9% of its land, to be used for housing, residential, the smaller lot housing, and reduce that further to 5.8%. And from what I can tell, well, let me back up. You also want to increase the amount of rural acreage, increase the rural acreage, taking it from 83.1% to 87%, even further restricting the creation of housing. So you want a lot more rural and less residential. And from what I can tell, all of you live on a nice piece of land in the county. You have yours, but we want to prevent anyone else from having theirs. That's what it feels like. At the last commission meeting, you said that if a person wants to move, and I think that was Lee, I think, it said if a person wants to move to Bloomington, perhaps they should live in the city. This sounds rather hypocritical to me, and not every homeowner with a family wants to live in the city where they don't have yards and a place for their kids to play and live in apartments and condos. I'm pretty sure you will vote to pass this with some made-up rhetoric to back your decision and make it sound good, regardless of what your constituents want or need, regardless of its impact on the cost of housing, which also affects and increases the taxes, the insurance, and rental rates. If you can't afford to buy one, your rents are going up. You've done that in the past, in 2012, and will history repeat itself? We're kind of thinking it will. I hope it doesn't. I hope you'll prove us wrong and you'll really give this a good consideration and look at the numbers and listen to what people have to say tonight. I really hope for the best in that. It'll make all of us have a little more faith in the system. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, let's go to our next online guest, Peter Gould. If you could be elevated to presenter, you should be able to unmute. If you could state your name and whether you live, work, or recreate in the county. Has Mr. Gould been promoted to a presenter? Okay, Mr. Gould, you should be able to unmute. Mr. Gould, if you can hear us and can unmute, you will have 3 minutes. Okay, let's go ahead to Roseanne Hammock then, if she could be promoted to a presenter. Thank you. Looks
Hi, thank you very much. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. If you could state your name and whether you live, work, or recreate in the county, you'll have 3 minutes.
My name is Roseanne Hammock. I am not a resident, but I represent Circle K Max Convenience Stores as property manager. Max owns a property located at 2510 and 2520 South Leonard Springs Road, Bloomington, Indiana. We strongly object to the rezone from limited business to high development residential. This means it would create a situation in which this parcel would become pre-existing non-conforming and would limit commercial use on the site. The business could continue as is only if no changes are made to the site. The rezone will devalue the property. We won't be able to upgrade the site, and this rezone from limited business to high development residential for other folks that are in this situation will also have their property devalued and limited. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for speaking tonight. Let's go to our next in-person presenter, and then it looks like Mr. Gould is unmuted. So after our next in-person presenter, Mr. Gould, you can go. So thank you for coming forward. If you could state your name, whether you live, work, or recreate in the county.
Good evening. My name is Christy Langley, and I work in Monroe County, but I also live in Monroe County outside of the city limits. Washington Township represent, similar as Joe. I am also the current chair of the Habitat for Humanity of Monroe County Board. And I'm also a reformed urban planner. I was a planning director for 2 cities in the state of Indiana, also part of the American Institute of Certified Planners, and a member of the Indiana Planning Association. So I realize how much of a challenge this is, and I appreciate that. I'm going to cut my comments short because most of what I had to say has been said already. I take particular issue with the subdivision restrictions, particularly with the wastewater treatment requirements, as well as the parent parcel provision. Those have all been talked about this evening. I'm putting my detailed comments in writing and sending them to the planning department. But really what I wanted to do is talk ideologically about how Monroe County approaches planning. I think it's no secret that a lot of administrators here in Monroe County feel very passionate about the environment and preservation. And a lot of people have talked about a white paper that's put together by some very smart folks. There's also another white paper that was put together by the Nature Conservancy a couple years ago, so trying to speak your all's language. And they put together a paper that said 2 paths to 2050. There could be one path where we go down to it together, conservation against growing human demands, right? And we keep going down our own pathway. We're going to do what we want to do despite the other. And the other pathway is working together and figuring out how we can balance and take a balanced approach. And that's something that admittedly doesn't seem like Monroe County government does very well. There's not a balanced approach with a county and with a city. There's not a balanced approach with the way that they look at tourism, with the way that they look at development. And so the only way, and the Nature Conservancy said this, is to make a plan that works is for regional collaboration. You're going to preserve the environment and the bounds of Monroe County while people go outside the county, continue to develop because it's cheaper. There are tributaries, there are geologic conditions that will still feed into Monroe County. So if you're not trying to find a compromise and find a way to develop sustainably in the county, you're pushing it out and it will still affect you in the end. Thank you very much.
Can you state your name again, please?
Yes, it's Christy Langley.
Thank you, Ms. Langley, for coming out tonight. Mr. Gould, we can go back to you now to try to see if your microphone is working.
Yeah, let's give it a shot. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Can you hear
if
me?
You could state your name and whether you live, work, or recreate in the county.
Sure. My name's Peter Gould, and I live in the county. I'm embarrassed to say I couldn't find the unmute button, but I found it. First of all, I wanted to shout out thanks to Jackie and the whole team at the planning department. They've done an awesome job of with the CDO website, the meetings and everything, and they deserve all of our thanks. Tonight, I've kind of got a mixed bag of in the weed bullet points that I wanted to hit. One that wasn't on my sheet is the definition of family, which has changed substantially from the current ordinance to the new one. My concern is that if we open that up and bring it from 3 unrelated parties to 5, we could end up with fraternity and sorority party houses, commune, maybe a motorcycle club in our neighborhood without even knowing about it, because that would be a by right use. So I would encourage keeping the current definition of 3 unrelated persons. And if there's a compelling reason to exceed that, that can be done by way of a variance. I wanted to comment on the wholesale change of Ag Rural Reserve on the east side of town to CVR. I really think we need to encourage the protection and preservation of Ag RR, or it's not going to be here. There's been a lot of talk about availability and short-term non-owner occupied rentals. I like to call them zombie houses. According to Visit Bloomington, there was a 43% increase in these between 2023 and 2024. The net result was 200 residences converted from useful residences to zombie houses. And I don't know how small a lot size you'd need to approve to offset a drain of 200 residences per year. So to the extent that we could eliminate these or restrict them, that might help. I wanted to touch on residential facilities formerly called group homes. I think we ought to keep these as is and then deal with them through the standard variance rather than go with a permitted or conditional use. And I think, especially with respect to the what is now, I think, the Class 2, that is permitted by statute. I'd like to see a expiration date on existing PUDs that haven't been built. It could be reasonable, but it'd be nice if they expire. Thanks for listening to my comments. I'll follow up with written.
Yeah, there we go.
Okay,
I think it's
gotcha.
working now. Thank you, Mr. Gould, for your comments, and I did want to thank you for the appreciation you showed to Jackie and the planning staff, because I think it's important for the group gathered tonight to know how much work that team has put into this. So thank you. Thank you for recognizing them. So we can turn now to our next in-person guest. If you'd like to come forward, state your first name and last name and whether you live, work, or recreate in the county.
I am Kristen Whita. I live in Monroe County outside of city limits. I actually bought a home in Marlin Hills for $155,000 15 years ago. I sold it last year for $437,000. I'm an executive director of the Board of Realtors and an executive level employee who specializes in housing. When I became single and an empty nester, I decided to sell my home and downsize. I cannot find a home to purchase within my budget in Monroe County. Mind you, I'm an executive level employee. I'm currently renting in Ellettsville. My sons are in college. My oldest is graduating this year. He wants to purchase a home when he secures his first professional job. He cannot afford to purchase a home in Monroe County. He cannot become a homeowner here. Unfortunately, the current housing policies are making it increasingly difficult for many of your constituents to afford to live in this community. This is a disappointing outcome that we can and should work together to change. As a result of these policies, the children and grandchildren of your constituents, including my own, are being forced to leave this community and grow up the community that they grew up in and live elsewhere. This room is filled with your constituents, including industry professionals who live and work here. They're here to help you recognize the crisis that your policies have created and suggest changes that will create an affordable and safe community while preserving our natural resources. I hope that you hear the voices here today and provide the needed changes that we are asking for. In addition, I spent my time here waiting for this to start, going around and speaking to all of your constituents here to hear why they're here. Why is this room filled? You know what they're afraid of? They're afraid of losing their rights to make decisions with their own property that they own, which is exactly what you guys, you commissioners, are pushing. You know what they're afraid of? They're afraid of increasing their taxes for their properties. And you know what you're doing, commissioners? You're increasing the tax prices for these residents because you are continuing to turn down development. You're needing income to pay for the cost of city and county government. And we, as residents, have to support that. And if we don't have continued development, then we are going to continue to burden that cost. Our property values are going to keep going up, and our taxes are going to keep going up. So the residents here are being smart, and they're paying attention to the commissioners. As this election is coming up, you have continued to turn down development. The SOMO development, that's exactly where I would have gone. I would have gone to Winninger Construction when he built he proposed to build condos in that development. And you turned it down. They ended up in Greene County built. And now we have $500,000 homes in SOMO because you guys turned that down.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, ma'am, but your 3 minutes are up. So thank you for speaking tonight. We can turn now to our next virtual guest, Angela Dowell. You're up next. It looks like you're unmuted. So if you could state your first name, last name, and whether you live, work, or recreate in the county.
Yeah, I am Angela Dowell. I do all three in the county. I've been an employee of Cook Medical for over 18 years now and recently relocated to Monroe County a little over a year ago. And with the cost of housing and our family situation, so we have 2 adult children, one nearly an adult who lives in his car. The one who's nearly an adult just moved in with other family because we recently had a baby. And so we don't have room in the house for her because the only thing that we could afford within the county that was near our budget was a 4-bedroom house that was egregiously misrepresented by the seller. I will go ahead and share so that you can take a look at this. When we bought it, it was actually pre-existing non-conforming, which severely limits our choices for what we want to do, because it's my understanding, and perhaps this is wrong, but it's my understanding that we can't get a permit to do anything until we fix the fact that it's pre-existing non-conforming, which is what we purchased. So we had nothing to do with the non-conformances. We have 2 separate driveways. We have 2 separate structures. The secondary structure, the daydo, is over 1,000 square feet. Now, I do understand the watershed implications for having more than a certain percentage of impervious cover. However, I don't understand having both a restriction on impervious cover and a restriction on the square footage of the secondary dwelling on the property, given our family situation, having adult children, as well as some coming to adulthood, as well as having younger children, ages infant through 22, and a total of 7 kids. It would be absolutely delightful to have multi-generational housing available on our property. As it stands, this is not in a livable condition, so we need to do something, but the problem is we can't do what we need to do. And I don't know that I gave the address on this one. It's 1155 West Lawson with the Bloomington zip code 47404. And I've tried to speak to different planners about it. And the problem is that the current CDO is so complex and difficult to understand that when I call to speak to a planner, they want to make sure that I speak to the same planner each time, who may or may not call me back. Because they don't want to give conflicting advice. Well, if it was easy to understand, there wouldn't be conflicting advice, right? And so one of the other things that I have concerns about in the current, was touched on earlier about the livestock restrictions. In its current state, it's absolutely impossible to enforce and impossible to understand. So let's just defer to the other codes that are already on the books for livestock and animal husbandry. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Dow, for speaking tonight. If our next in-person guest would like to come forward and sign in, state your name and whether you live, work, or recreate in the county.
My name is Sarah Rogers, and I live and work in the county. I'm also a Senior Vice President Business Services for IU Credit Union. Andy Allard, our COO, Chris Hawk, our CFO, and Brian Price, our CEO, also wish they could be here tonight, but are out of town. IU Credit Union has been in Monroe County since 1956. We are deeply committed to this county and our community. We're a major local mortgage lender and commercial lender, an employer of over 200 people, and a community partner to numerous non-for-profits. Most importantly, we serve our 37,819 individual Monroe County members and their banking needs. With this lens, we feel it's important to address certain critical elements of the CDO. First, workforce. There are minimal provisions for land suitable to build workforce housing. I know that I'm stating what we have heard numerous times. We need more workforce housing or housing in general. We're sounding like a broken record. But because of the affordability and shortage of housing, 20% of IU Credit Union Bloomington employees live outside of Monroe County and commute in daily. Lack of housing in the county then only increases the value of the housing stock, continuing the negative trend of affordability. Second, what are the potential impacts on current county property owners due to zoning and permitted use changes? As a lender, we are concerned for property owners trying to sell property if zoning has changed and it negatively impacts their value. If leveraged, this could be detrimental. Additionally, permitted use changes for businesses could also negatively impact value of the business and real estate. Residents and businesses may not be thinking of that impact today, but sales due to death, divorce, downsizing, or growing do happen. Lastly, the impact on first-time homebuyers and those wanting to relocate to Bloomington. As a mortgage lender, we pre-approve people daily for home mortgages. We provide people the amount of the loan and house they can afford. Increasingly, we find that the pre-approvals become cancellations because they cannot find houses. Particularly housing in the $200,000 to $250,000 price point seems to be a missing ingredient. People cannot find a house. Either it does not exist, or they compete with cash buyers, or it needs a lot of work which they cannot afford to complete. The BEDC, the Bloomington Chamber, Baskey, BBOR, Habitat, and the Ellisville Chamber are all local concerned people and businesses and have worked hard to help this process and to give quality input. Please consider their recommended changes in the white paper provided, which addresses our concerns. And we really appreciate the opportunity to share our thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out to speak tonight, Ms. Rogers. Before we continue, I want to ask our planning staff and fellow Plan Commission members and commissioners if anybody would like a break. If you could raise your hand if you feel like you need a break.
I think a short break would be useful. A short break.
5 minutes, 10 minutes?
10.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's take
Plan
a 10-minute break then.
Commissioner
and we will
Member Owens, I
we will
saw that you
reconvene
had
at
raised your
8:07.
hand, and I have raised my hand. Are you having technical issues as well?
John, we can hear you just fine. We were talking about having a 10-minute break and returning back at 7:07
Says I'm an
or
attendee
8:07.
now.
8:07.
And I lost
Yeah,
all
so
the
we'll
sound
reconvene in
and the
10 minutes.
pictures.
Those of you who are in line, feel free to keep
Okay,
your
it
place
sounds
in
like
line. I'd like to call the meeting back to order. So I believe we were going with a virtual guest next. So we've got Dave and Patty Bush's hand raised again. So I know we already heard from Mrs. Bush, but Mr. Bush, if you'd like to speak, feel free to go ahead and unmute. State your first name, last name, and whether you live, work, and recreate in the county. You'll have 3 minutes.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. I'm Dave Bush, and I live at 1250 West Church Lane in Monroe County, outside the city. I've lived here for over 25 years. And first off, I would like to thank the Planning Department, Plan Commission members, and our county commissioners for your service. I know it's been a long, arduous process here, and appreciate your time. So I am speaking because I'm concerned about the proposed densification of the area south of that road and west of Clear Creek, an area that has been zoned residential state 1 for the past 25 years or more. Now there are those who wish to rezone a rural neighborhood to community development residential, allowing up to 4.5 homes per acre, effectively changing the zoning to medium density. Why is this being proposed? Some say that we must prepare for the future and that Monroe County and Bloomington are experiencing an affordable housing shortage. And if that is true, and I believe it is, then the affordable housing developments should be carefully designed and located where a well-developed utility infrastructure exists and where shops and support services are within walking distance. Build up, not out. This existing rural area that I'm speaking about, without bus routes or walkable distance to grocery stores, is not a good candidate for densification. It does provide a natural transition from the denser neighborhoods north of that road to the more rural areas to the south. Additionally, the area along the West Fork of Clear Creek has been designated a critical watershed and is very sensitive to the impacts of already approved developments upstream of this area. Over the past 4 years, developers unsuccessfully tried multiple times to get this property at 4691 South Victor Pike rezoned to allow for building of anywhere from 125 to over 200 housing units on approximately 36 buildable acres, which is currently zoned RE1. Each time the county commissioners have voted down the proposal. The one constant in this is that over 300 objectors, area homeowners, trail users, and visitors to the area have consistently requested that the land be left as it is currently zoned, Residential 1. We urge the Plan Commission to respect the wishes of our current homeowners and keep our rural area rural. Thank you for your time.
Tech service, oh, Okay, sorry. Now my microphone is working. And I noticed that the timer wasn't working during that call also. So if you could take a look at that, we would appreciate it. So, okay, it's been reset to 3 minutes. Thank you. So we will turn now to our next in-person guest, Mr. Butler. If you could state your first name, last name, whether you live, work, and recreate in the county, you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, I'm Eric Deckard with Deckard Land Surveying. I'm a resident of Monroe County. I also work within Monroe County. I would also like to echo some of the concerns found on the white paper from that's been passed out to you guys. So more specifically, you know, the dimensional standards as you'll find on page 43. I just want to take a quick moment here and just kind of point out one thing to you here with respect to some of these standards. For example, let's talk a little bit about like the Ag RR district, where you've got 2.5 acre minimum lot sizes. With these standards, it mentions the impervious surface can be either 15% or 15,000 square feet, whichever is less. When we use the terminology, whichever is less, that means that the square footage would be the one that prevails, 15,000 square feet. On a 2.5 acre lot, this would put something in the size of 16,335 square feet. That would also restrict somebody that owns 400 acres to 15,000 square feet. That means that someone like Carl Cook wouldn't be able to build his current residence that was just built this year. That would also restrict somebody in the ag district from being able to construct a farm building, something to be able to house equipment, something to be able to house their livestock. And it would limit it to almost 100 by 200 square feet. So as you can see, that's very restrictive. And we also want to take in consideration that we don't take the driveways into consideration when we're doing this calculation if it's an impervious area. It doesn't take very long for a long driveway to eat up several hundred square feet. Also, we might want to re-examine the height restriction on buildings. I see that it's stating 40 feet in height. Well, where's that measurement being taken from? Because if we look at a standard house, and let's say that we've got a 10-12 pitch roof, we've got a house that is 50 feet wide. This is going to put a roof alone at 22 feet into the air. A lot of homes today want to have, you know, their walls being at least 10 feet. This would limit it to a 1-story house instead of a 2-story house, and maybe even possibly eliminate even having a walkout basement situation. So I think there's some room for improvement. I also would like to thank staff for all their hard work that they put into it up to today's date, but I think that we've still got some more hiccups that we need to work out of this first. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deckard. Apologies that I got your name wrong at the beginning. It's especially embarrassing since I could read it on your shirt, so I apologize.
That's all right.
If we want to turn now to our next virtual guest, Abby, you're up next. If you would like to unmute, state your first name, last name, and whether you live, work, or recreate in the county, you'll have 3 minutes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay, my name is Abigail Hudoff, lifelong resident of Monroe County. I myself have major concerns of what the CDO has planned for our livestock. I was a 10-year 4-H'er in my youth and now raising a future 4-H'er myself. 4-H livestock projects are extremely important in our county. It teaches our youth responsibility, compassion, biosecurity, and so forth. I myself raise a large flock of fowl that I use to feed myself year-round and my family year-round in the winter. My concern is that 4-H projects are not year-round, and it affects everybody that has livestock on what this CDO would consider not enough property. I understand that some people have concerned about quality of life, but this is Monroe County, not Tyson chicken. A lot of our young 4-H'ers know how to responsibly take care of livestock. People like myself who do it to feed themselves, their families, loved ones around them. And I know many people that I know personally do it as a business. That is their full-time job. And this CDO is going to extremely hurt them. I really hope that you guys look into this. You're not explaining enough about what it means by a chicken coop has to be set back 20 foot. 20 foot from what? chickens are small animals. They do not need 10 acres to have 50 chickens on. I really hope that you guys listen to everybody's concerns, especially about agriculture, because 4-H is extremely big in this county. And if you guys took the time to talk to anybody that lived here, you guys would understand that this what is in the CDO right now is not going to work for our 4-H projects. This is going to affect the fair. It's going to affect the children that keep these livestock year round to feed themselves, their families. So I really hope that you guys take another look at this and understand that this is going to hurt the community, not help it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Edoff. I appreciate your comments tonight. So it doesn't look like we have any other virtual hands raised. So if there's anybody else online that does wish to speak, we will continue rotating between in-person online, but feel free to go ahead and raise your hand, raise your virtual hand, and add yourself to the queue. So we can bring our next in-person speaker to the podium. If you could state your first, last name, sign in, and state whether you live, work, or recreate in the county.
Hi, my name is Aisha Polk. I live and work in Monroe County. I am also a supporter of Habitat for Humanity. In 2022, I was accepted into the Habitat program, and as of August 30th of this year, my family and myself are proud homeowners of a Habitat house. So I'm here to speak to the need for affordable housing. Since becoming a mother, I have moved with my children a total of 9 times in the last 20 years. After living in less than desirable conditions between government housing to transitional housing with pests and mold inside to violence and substance abuse outside, we now have our own sanctuary of peace that would never have otherwise remained that would have otherwise remained an intangible dream for us or anyone who could never afford to purchase a home within city limits. Homeownership through the Habitat program has gifted us the privilege of stability and security essential to my children's health and overall well-being. Environment matters to the development of a child. We moved into our home in early June, and within that short period of time, I have noticed, as well as teachers and after-school staff, a difference in my kids. As stress and anxiety levels have lowered significantly, so have behaviors. We are all at peace and have the opportunity to start fresh in our forever home. My kids and so many others are the future of this community, and they deserve to have the peace, stability, and support they require to excel and thrive as children so that they can contribute to the prosperity of our growing town as adults. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Polk, for sharing your personal story with us. We really appreciate that, and congratulations on your home ownership. I do want to share for those of you on the first floor that may be watching on the TV, we do have several open spots available upstairs in the Nat U Hill room. We've got probably a dozen spots if anybody who wishes to speak would like to come upstairs. So not seeing anybody else with their virtual hand raised, Mr. Loftman, you can go ahead and come to the podium. You're next. If you could state your first name, last name, and whether you live, work, or recreate in the county.
My name is Guy Loftman. I live in Monroe County outside the city limits. I live at 4835 South Victor Pike, right next to the Robertson Farm at 4691 South Victor Pike. The 44 acres of the Robertson Farm and surrounding area are taken from 1 acre lot size to about 0.22, and I'm asking that to be changed back to 1 acre lot sizes. I'm a next door neighbor, so I'm a NIMBY. This is saying I don't want it in my backyard. I'm a proud NIMBY. I think NIMBYs get a bad rap. NIMBYs are neighbors who know the lay of the land, who know the nature of the community. In fact, there's all sorts of special notices to give to the neighbors so the neighbors can know what's going on. You put a notice out on the road so people who drive by can know what's going on. These are the people who deserve to be listened to, especially on planning issues. I've made up some other acronyms. I'm on the Board of Zoning Appeals, and sometimes we have YIMBYs. Yes, in my backyard. That's when the neighbors and the owners agree that there's a real problem here and agree on a solution to it. And we bend over backwards, frankly, to help those people. And then there's unique to the Robertson Farm, Noibys, not in our backyard, because there are over 300 people who signed postcards saying keep Victor Pike rural. That's a lot of people. These are just trail users who stopped by and saw these signs saying please sign up. It's a show of thousands of people who use this. Think of the Robertson Farm as our backyard, and we want to keep Victor Pike rural. And then there's Niabi, not in anybody's backyard. Something this dense as has been proposed for Robertson Farm is just not practical. The karst and the wetlands and the Duke easement make development impractical. Bad plans shouldn't be allowed in anyone's backyard, not mine, not on the other side of the county. And finally, there's the Yeebies. Yes, everybody's backyard. People who are in the development industry who make money by constructing impermeable surfaces. And they are extremely well represented this evening. And that minority of the community should not have control over the development that you all have worked on so hard and done such a good job of. Keep Robertson Farm 1 acre lot. Keep Victor Pike rural. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lothman, for coming out tonight. We appreciate your comments. If our next in-person speaker would like to come forward to the podium. And as a reminder, if there is anybody online who wishes to speak, please go ahead and raise your virtual hand so you'll be added to the queue. If you do so, we will start alternating back and forth again between virtual and online. So, ma'am, if you could state your first name, last name, and whether you live, work, or recreate in the county.
Hi, I'm Jody Madeira, and I'm proud to live, work, and recreate in Monroe County. I'm representing myself. Tonight, I want to plead with county officials to revise this draft CDO in light of the comments that you're hearing. My heartfelt thanks to everyone who spent so much time on this important project. It's essential that we get this right now. The current draft gets some things very right, like simplifying zoning categories and the flexibility afforded to Monroe County Airport. But I'm also concerned this draft CDO will bring severe hardship to Monroe County. I love data. According to Indiana's own stats from July, in the not-too-distant future, growth across the state will stagnate. From 2020 to 2050, projected growth is 5.4%, mostly occurring in communities like Indianapolis. Communities that don't embrace sustainable changes will die. Our population is aging rapidly. For a different future, Monroe County needs a vibrant economy. We need to attract younger residents to sustain our economic base. This requires viable housing, viable jobs, and quality of life measures. I'm concerned this draft doesn't conform to the comprehensive plan last revised in 2012. The comp plan called for ensuring ample property for sustainable housing, for economic development, and balancing growth with conservation and environmental protections. This draft CDO doesn't maintain this balance. I'm concerned this draft CDO will exacerbate Monroe County's housing crisis, particularly the minimum 2.5 acre lot size in agricultural 2.5 and residential 1 zoning categories. This will increase adverse environmental effects and suburban sprawl. I'm concerned this draft CDO will burden Monroe County with even more litigation when homeowners turn to the courts to wrangle non-conforming uses or to seek recompense for decreased property values. I'm concerned this draft CDO allocates too little land for development to entice employers to move into the county with critical living wage jobs, particularly along the critical I-69 corridor connecting us to Crane. IU has announced it is investing $660 million in developing its Indy campus because it feels the door is shut to growth in Monroe County. This makes it hard to keep current residents, retain IU and Ivy Tech students, or attract new employees. I'm concerned about other provisions. The sliding scale subdivision 25-year moratorium locks down land for unduly long periods of time. It will be unduly burdensome for property owners to donate property to conservation organizations like the Sycamore Trust. We can offer our residents something better. We can allow sustainable development without losing our rural character. Finally, this draft CDO is incredibly complex. I'm concerned that most members of the public don't know what awaits them should this draft pass. It would be wonderful if the CDO review period could be extended to facilitate broader community understanding, engagement, and input. And it would be wonderful if there was an interim period after it was adopted to allow for inevitable revisions. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out tonight. Our next speaker would like to come forward, state your first name, last name, and whether you live, work, and recreate in the county.
Hello, my name is Sarah St. John Wolford. I was born and raised in Monroe County and currently live within the city, although my boyfriend is a landowner in the county. I see firsthand the effects of ordinances on my friends and family who grew up here as we struggle to find homes in the area we grew up in. I see the county and city finger pointing at each other rather than asking what they themselves can contribute to solve the problems of our county. People who grew up here no longer have the same housing opportunities as our parents. Families that own land in the county with these ordinances will not be able to as easily add mother-in-law suites or homes on their own property. Homes that are zoned and are not compliant or that are non-compliant risk not being able to rebuild in the event of fire or other catastrophic event, further limiting people's land rights and increasing the housing crisis. You claim to want to keep the county rural, and yet this hurts even our agricultural landowners. And you can't get more rural than that. The restrictions on land size where a degree of 1/100th of an acre would make a difference. The restriction of sewer access, which is a public good, and adding deed restrictions on land is disappointing to see. This affects real families and people. I ask that you do the right thing for Monroe County so that my generation and the next have opportunities here. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for your comments tonight. If you could state your first name, last name, whether you live, work, or recreate in the county, you'll have 3 minutes.
Good evening. I'm Donnie Atkins. Plan Commission members, commissioners, and planning staff, thanks for hosting this. It's very nice of you to do so. I live in the county. I hope to raise and will raise 4 children in this county, and I hope to die in this county. Tonight, you've heard how dire and negative the attainable housing shortage is in our beloved county. You've heard from for-profit folks, nonprofit folks, and people have even presented math that should make this unavoidably clear. In addition, you can go see countless articles in the Herald Times of how businesses in this county have had to take extraordinary measures to help their employees find housing in this county so their employees can contribute to this county. So with all that context, I expected to read this draft document and see providing access to attainable housing as a key goal of this document. And after reading this document several times, I can't find one thing that helps provide attainable housing for Monroe County families. There's not one thing in it. It does some great things to simplify housing zones, but that in and of itself does not support attainable housing for this county. I'm absolutely baffled by how that is possible. As I understand it, this CDO is a once-in-a-decade opportunity for county leaders to lead, and as such, I'm requesting that this document be withdrawn as it is and rewritten from scratch. And as it's being rewritten, I request that for every change that's being made to it, someone asks the question, does this help provide attainable housing for the county? And if the answer to that is no, then the change should not be made. Those are the only changes I feel that should be made, is if there's a bona fide way to demonstrate it helps support attainable housing for this community. This is an opportunity to lead this county by making attainable housing the #1 priority for the next decade. Please take advantage of this opportunity. Monroe County families are struggling and need solutions if they want to raise their families here and contribute to this county. Thank you very much and have a good night.
Thank you, sir, for coming forward. If our next in-person speaker could come to the podium, please. State your first name, last name, whether you live, work, or recreate in the county.
Celeste Nadworny. I live half-time in the county. I'm a property owner and considering moving. Mike, I have a question for everybody. I did not read the 500 pages in the last 2 months. I probably will start reading that when I get home. I would like to know what impact has the designation of Bloomington as a sanctuary city had on the housing, unhoused status crisis? I've been coming back and forth here for years, and I currently live in another sanctuary city, and I think it has had a huge impact on what's available, who's here, what's available, and your problems. Question, Chief.
Thank you for speaking tonight. Mr. Cassidy, you're up next.
Good evening, Randy Cassidy, and yes, I live, recreate, and work in Monroe County, and I'm very proud to do that. So, as we look here tonight, my beautiful bride and new grandmother is passing out something that has to do with the history, character, and culture of our community. When I look at things to hear everything we've looked at on the CDO and such, everybody that is here, the Planning Commission, the commissioners, and the planning staff for their hard work have put hours and hours into this. Now, as you've heard overview, there's a lot of specific questions that have overall. What I'd like to dwell to is something that Guy Loftman and the area that we talk about into our rural communities. Specifically, as we point out, and what I'm looking at and just handed out, is the Monroe County Bloomington Restorations in 1989 put out a historical overview of Monroe County. As you're well aware over the years and such, my wife grew up and we're very proud of the history and heritage of Clear Creek. But because of its proximity to the city limits and where it's located, it's never been given its due process in regards to, as we look through on the current CDO in the historic downtown Clear Creek that is on the map I gave you, and the first page that shows, which is the context of that report from 1989 by the Monroe County History Center and Bloomington Restorations, it shows a picture of Clear Creek. In the handout I showed you is the historic Clear Creek District. What I would like to ask is that when we look from a rural neighborhood and we want to keep things rural, we want to keep our community close in those areas with the history, heritage, continuity, and context of these rural communities, that we take that area that is designed here and we make that into a rural community. The reason being is that is a place where people gather, where people go, where it gives a sense of community. But by just leaving it zoned in CD, residential, to rural neighborhoods, the continuity is broken without going through each particular property. I would ask the Planning Commission, the commissioners, and the staff to notice that and give the Clear Creek community, with the post office that's been there since 1870, we have 3 schools, the same due that we've given Harrodsburg, Smithville specifically, and our other rural communities. So if you could please look at making those changes so we keep that history, we keep that character, and we keep the Clear Creek Comets and the other schools with that pride and continuity of our community. I would greatly appreciate you taking that in consideration. Thank you for all your help.
Thank you, Mr. Cassidy. Ms. Cassidy, would you like to speak next?
Hi there. My name is Tamby Weichel Cassidy, and I'm a Monroe County resident. I'm here speaking primarily as a property owner in Monroe County. And based on some of the experiences that I've been through of developing that property, I just want to say that I feel like there's too much there, which is an infamous statement that the previous planning director would use for different projects. I kind of feel the same way about the CDO in some of these areas. The first one would be landscaping. I feel like too many plants are required, too costly, all of that, all these things you need to consider what adds to the cost of those developments. And are they really able to be maintained and watered and look good? I mean, I think it would be easier to have green space that's some of it is lawn instead of, you know, the plants that are not maintained or so many weeds. I also feel that the recent detention HOA requirements are somewhat of an age discriminatory practice. The majority of the folks that showed up for the meeting that was over at the Ellettsville Library were definitely of the 55 and up category. And I think the majority of those property owners are probably senior citizens. And I don't think that new practice is going to be fair. It's based on you're not even knowing who the HOAs are, for one, and you're looking for those lists. And secondly, you're doing it to HOAs that have been existing for years. And I just think it's a little harsh. And I saw the looks on their faces and said, you know, this just doesn't seem quite right to me. I also think that one thing that could increase housing stock would be that a DADU does not have a deed restriction, that the owner have to live on the property. Many of them, I mean, I provided affordable housing in Clear Creek at what would have been considered a new DADU at a very reasonable rent. And, you know, I don't understand why that can't continue as a practice. I think that it's great that you guys are looking for by right regulations so that people can come into your office and to make it easier for you to say, here's what you can do. I think it's great that you're working on it. I can see a decrease in the number of pages and regulations and categories, and I see those as real positives. I also view the large setback requirements as somewhat of an involuntary taking, but you still get taxed for it, which is not a legal practice, involuntary taking. I would love it if we could get on board with more regional sewer, so important to our environment and our clean water. And, you know, we are the regulators and the people who can call those shots. So I think it would be a really good thing. I'd like to see us be able to work that out with the city of Bloomington, but you know, maybe we need to look at our own choices like we've done for a South Central Regional Sewer.
Yeah, and I'm sorry to cut you off, Mrs. Cassidy, but your 3 minutes are up, so thank you for coming out tonight. Just a reminder that if anybody online wishes to speak, please raise your virtual hand to be added to the queue. We'll take our next in-person speaker. If you could state your first name, last name, whether you live, work, and recreate in the county.
Yeah, my name is Clint Deck, and I live in Washington Township. I live here, work here. I'm representing myself, but I am the 4-H educator for Monroe County. One of 2 educators thanks to Monroe County's investment in local youth recently. Tonight, my focus is very narrow. In case I self-destruct here and leave or whatever, my narrow focus is just like, can we maybe discuss some language in the CDO about educational consideration for the accessory livestock policies, just because of the broad range of youth that do participate in such specific, unique programs such as FFA and 4-H. As a background, 4-H is a youth-serving organization that we all have a vested interest in preserving. It is the only youth program with federal, state, county, and university, and also volunteer investment. It's a research-backed program that allows youth to partner with trusted adults in order to achieve real-world accomplishments in a smaller playing field with less investment than a typical agricultural entrepreneur. I estimate that our proposed changes in the CDO would immediately eliminate about 30% of youth exhibition at county fair. And that would just further limit opportunity for new audiences to enjoy 4-H opportunities. Hundreds of local 4-H families have multiple children who buy a market animal for a very short period of the year to finish on grain, grass, and or hay for the educational value the program provides via meetings, workshops, clinics, shows, and also a mandated animal health and ethics course taught by Purdue Extension educators. The 4-H program teaches the broad differences in different species and how stress-free animals provide communities with the highest quality, most profitable protein sources. 4-H youth depend on their ability to purchase multiple animals each spring to carefully and thoughtfully raise them. They need the ability to raise their livestock in a manner universally accepted by any reasonable small-scale farmer, while also allowing opportunity for all siblings in a family to do the same without an acreage limitation that could disenfranchise a child for being a member of a slightly larger family. I can attest to the fact that the 4-H and FFA members provide their animals with much more than just green space. They provide very high quality feed, more than what a typical farmer could provide. They provide ultra clean water, daily grooming, daily exercise. Our 4-Hers even provided 11,000 pounds of meat to local food pantries and community kitchens this year. I'm sure you'll hear a lot from the 4-H community before the CDO is adopted, but I'd simply like to float the idea of specific language in the CDO. Excuse me.
I'm sorry to cut you off, sir, but your 3 minutes are up, so thank you for coming out
All right,
today.
I think you got the point. Thank you.
Thank you.
You can submit that language via email.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Pittsford.
Okay.
Yeah, if you go to monroecdo.com, there's a form. And Mr. Blankenship, before you get started, I would just like to share to the people downstairs on the first floor of the courthouse, if you're watching on the TV, we do have vacant spots up here in the Nat U Hill room on the 3rd floor if you'd like to come up and speak. So, Mr. Blankenship, I'll turn it over to you.
I still have a long name, so that didn't change. Okay. Well, thank you very much. My name is Devin Blankenship. I'm a lifelong Washington Township, Monroe County, Indiana resident. I live, work, recreate, and volunteer here. My friends know that I bleed limestone and stardust. So, first of all, I want to thank the staff, the officials, volunteer board members, and public for their dedication to the future Monroe County. It's amazing to see the number of people who are involved. I'm particularly proud of my Washington Township neighbors for showing up. And today I'm here as kind of a non-official representative of my township as a community facilitator. So some of the main concerns that my neighbors have talked about is the zoning as far as residential 1 zoning and the residential historic neighborhood, the residential neighborhood zoning district, RNH. I was actually surprised to see the parcels that were under 1 acre listed as residential 1. And so I think that's something to look at because they're already non-compliant. So I don't know what that means for if the house burns down, if they need a new sewer. Some of that wasn't exactly clear. I also didn't read all 500 pages, so maybe it's just somewhere I didn't see it. So I think being able to clarify that would be great. I have neighbors with land that's, like 0.34 acres. Looking at that subdivision control, if I wanted to buy a parcel of land from one of my neighbors, they couldn't give a parcel to their child within a 25-year period, so it kind of stifles some of our neighborly ways. And so I think that's something to look at as well. Obviously, we appreciate rural life in Washington Township, so we don't necessarily want hyper-development. Another issue is floodplains. I don't know if you've heard of Bean Blossom Bottoms, but we got a lot of floodplains in Washington Township. And so one of the things that has come up is would there be a way to slice off floodplain and zone it specifically so then the rest of the parcel might be more blatantly usable or clearly usable to avoid those hoops for everybody. We've heard from our ag community, so that's great. I think things like the landscaping have come up quite a bit. We really don't have a rural aesthetic guideline that I'm aware of. It's kind of a suburban guideline, and so that's something I would love to help with developing. And then I know that I could work with any of you in this room, and any of you would hold my hand trying to figure out a policy, and I really appreciate that. I've lived in Monroe County my whole life, and almost everyone I know lives somewhere else now. So I want you to stay here forever, but you might not be in the office when I come in with a question, so I want to make sure that things are as clear as possible for whoever's in the position in the future. Oh, the clock, I can't see. 9 seconds, good. So anyway, that being said, I bought a house in 2012 in Monroe County, and I would not be able to do the same today. And so that's something to consider. I have a friend who's a 20-year educator who works for an out-of-state university who is having a hard time finding a place to live in Monroe County. So I'd love for us to work on that too. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Would our next in-person speaker like to come forward? If you could state your first name, last name, whether you live, work, or recreate in the county, and sign in, please.
I'm Roger Funkhauser, lifelong Monroe County resident, and I wasn't even planning on coming here, but I thought I probably better, and I did, and this is not my cup of tea, but I thought I need to speak up. My family's had several businesses in Monroe County throughout the years, small business, and we've always had battles with the county. We spent many battles in this room over the years. And it just seems like it just keeps going on. And I think common sense has been thrown out the window on all these little things you're trying to do. We've raised cattle. My family's raised cattle all my life. And our family farms are depreciating and just going away. And you guys are restricting the livestock. I think that's the most craziest thing I've ever heard. Trying to regulate what all you do with your ground and the taxes. We keep paying taxes more and more every year, and you regulate more and more what we can do and can't do. And it's just very disappointing to see this county turn in the way it's going. Our family farm's got the 7th generation growing up on that farm, and to try to split that off if they wanted to live there is impossible. And this county just needs to get back to reality in so many ways and get this all figured out. I've heard a lot of things from everybody. That's all good points, and they've done their research. I'm just shooting what I've been hearing, and I think you guys just need to really take in fact what all's been said and go through your plans and ideas and get this all figured out. And the only way I see things are going to get back to normal or back to reality is if the Monroe County people go out and vote come November. So that's all I need to say.
Thank you, sir, for coming forward tonight. We'll take our next in-person speaker, and then I notice we do have one online speaker in the queue. So, sir, if you'd like to go ahead here in person, state your first name, last name, whether you live, work, or recreate in the county, then we'll go to a virtual speaker next.
Tom Weininger with Weininger Construction, third generation builder developer, live in Indian Creek in Monroe County. And my goal for quite a while has been to build workforce housing. And whether it be in Monroe County or Greene County, I want to build workforce housing. And so one thing that we pull on data is we put a criteria of under $350,000, 2 years or newer. We do Monroe County and then the 6 counties that touch Monroe County. And currently, there's 25 homes that meet that criteria in 7 counties. There's only 2 in Monroe County. We have 9 in Greene County, Weininger Construction. 6 of them are under $220,000. My point is, we can do it. The housing problem's not the city of Bloomington. It's not Ellettsville. It's not Monroe County. It's the region, and we got to work together to do this. We're not doing it. And we need to give the opportunity to the next generation that we had, not just shut it off. So I don't see the CDO doing that, and I think it's the wrong direction to go in, but appreciate your time.
Thank you, sir, for coming up to speak tonight. We will now go to David Killian online. Sorry to make you wait. I want to make sure we're rotating back and forth between virtual and in person. So, Mr. Killian, if you could unmute, looks like you're already unmuted. If you could state your first name, last name, whether you live, work, or recreate in the county, you'll have 3 minutes.
Sure. Good evening, Plain Commission. My name is David Killian. I am a proud, lifelong Monroe County resident and also a third-generation builder. I also work and recreate in this community. First, I'd like to recognize all parties, including Jackie and the planning department staff and their countless hours and hard work that has gone into the drafting of this document throughout the past 4 years. I'm also the proud current president of the Building Association of South Central Indiana, or BASCI. I would like to reiterate the pressing issue of housing in our beloved Monroe County and to share our perspective on this proposed CDO. As you're likely aware, housing studies conducted within our community show a clear and unequivocal need for more housing. We at BASCI understand that our county is facing a housing crisis. Data indicates that Monroe County has one of the highest housing costs in Indiana, and many residents are grappling with the reality of unaffordable rent and mortgages. This is not just a statistic, it is a clarion call for action that we cannot ignore. Our association is comprised of local business owners and employees, nearly all of whom are Monroe County residents. We are deeply invested in the well-being of our community and generally want to help. However, we believe that the prevailing sentiment among some county leadership, which seems to view growth as inherently negative, is doing more harm than good. The not in my backyard attitude is exclusionary and fails to recognize the urgency of our community housing needs. It is critical to understand that growth does not equate to deterioration. In fact, targeted, responsible growth can enrich our community, drive economic development, and create more housing options for our residents. We cannot afford to build barriers to new development when the very fabric of our community depends on affordable housing. After careful review, it is BASCI's opinion that the proposed CDO could inadvertently exacerbate the very crisis we are seeking to resolve. By imposing restrictions and obstacles, we fear that the CDO may limit the ability of builders like us to respond proactively to the housing needs of our community. We are eager to collaborate with local leaders to create framework that allows for sustainable development. We want to build homes that are not only necessary but essential to improving the quality of life in Monroe County residents. BASCI believes that our community should be inclusive, providing housing opportunities for individuals and families of all income levels. We urge the Plan Commission to reassess the provisions within the CDO that may hinder our ability to contribute effectively to this pressing problem. Let's engage in dialogue that fosters growth while considering the needs of current and future residents. If we can work together to create an environment that values both responsible development and community input, we will be
I'm sorry to cut you off, sir, but your 3 minutes are up. So thank you for coming out to speak tonight. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
And if our next in-person guest would like to come to the podium, state your first name, last name, whether you live, work, or recreate in the county.
My name is David L. Jenner II. I do all that stuff in the county. I've been doing it for almost a half a century. Part of what I'm going to say, I think, is going to be part of a broken record, and I hope that you all understand your position in this. And the idea here is what are we going to do to promote economic growth in this community? How are we going to work together? The developers are not your enemies, and it shouldn't be, the people in this room should not be the developers' enemies either, and the home buyers and the people that want to live here. We should find a way to work together. And there are certain things that we have seen repeatedly coming up in this CDO that do not promote the common economic growth of this community. A 25-year subdividing rule destroys economic growth and development, as well as the vision of families and passing on of our heritage from one generation to another. When I start adding up these years, it's maybe a maximum, if I'm lucky, that I would get to subdivide my property twice. So what you're going to do is force me to look at maybe a grandchild that wants a couple acres, or that wants an acre to live on, or 5 acres, whatever that acreage may be. And you're going to force me to look at them and say, tough luck. you got to wait another 15 years to raise your family around here, or 20 years, or some number. That doesn't seem right, that you're forcing me, the person that is sweating for this property, the person that has paid for this property, the person that has given for this property, and my family that's given for it, and you're coming down on us and you're trying to tell me that I have to tell my children, get out of here. I don't think that's right at all. I'm a human being, don't forget that. All of us are human beings out here. We're not just little numbers that you should be just checking off your list or doing whatever. So I don't think this rule in any way helps the economic growth of the community. Septic systems are environmentally safe. They've been created that way. They can be used. I've been putting Presby systems in for over 20 years. I have 3 installers, 0 callbacks on these. We can put them up on 1-acre lots. There isn't any issues with it. I know a bunch of them where they're at in this community. This 5-acre rule that I'm seeing in the CDO for you to be able to put a house up is way too much. There's a lot of people that don't want 5 acres. They don't want to have to take care of it. They want to go out, mow their lawn. An acre is plenty to mow Saturday morning and go play golf in the afternoon. That's kind of the American
Sorry to interrupt you,
dream.
Mr. Jenner. Your 3 minutes are up, but thank you for coming out tonight. So we are approaching 9 p.m., so I want to follow our rules of procedure. Could I get a show of hands for anybody in the room who still wishes to speak? Okay, so we've got a few people still wishing to speak. So I want to turn now to the Plan Commission to discuss whether we want to continue this meeting to another day or whether someone would like to make a motion to continue the meeting tonight. I would recommend if we continue tonight that we set a time to revisit that.
My question would be, do we still have people downstairs who are not presently up? I know we have space in the room, but I don't know if that indicates the first floor level has been cleared of potential speakers. And we don't know for sure that there's nobody online waiting to speak because we haven't updated that yet either.
Right. Yeah, Tammy, go ahead.
Planning staff has checked in downstairs several times, and I think everyone who wanted to come up has come up here, and also Tron does have his hand raised.
Okay.
I would like to make a motion that we continue this meeting until 10 o'clock and then take another vote.
Second. Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Jackie, would you call the roll?
Sure, I'll go ahead and call the roll to proceed with the meeting until 10 p.m. A vote and second has been made. Scott Ferris?
Yes.
Jeff Morris?
Yes.
Margaret Clements?
Yes, but I also would like to continue the meeting to October 1st, even if we go through the number of people who are in the room tonight who wish to speak, because I believe some people have left who wanted to speak. But yes, for hearing the people who are still here, and October 1st for the ones who left.
Jerry Pittsford?
Yes.
Julie Thomas?
Yes.
Tron Enright Randolph?
I know I'm attending online. It makes some things a bit more challenging, but I was a little bit recognized that I had my hand up, and the president of the Plan Commission, Jeff Morris, had mentioned he wanted to go back to the Plan Commission for some discussion, and before I was recognized, a motion was offered. So I do feel like I was stifled to share my thoughts or my opinion about how to proceed, and that just kind of is my thought. And I'm in support of what Margaret was saying, the second part about continuing this. I'm in support of listening to folks too, but I rather have a motion that incorporates continuing this to the October 1st and keeping the public comment open as well. So I'm going to vote no on this motion.
Okay. Dee Owens?
Yes.
Okay. Motion is 6-1 to proceed till 10 p.m.
Okay, Jackie, so thank you. And to address the comment, first of all, Mr. Enright Randolph, I apologize that I did not see your hand raised. And to Ms. Clemens' comment, I believe that when we come to the 10 o'clock hour, if we were still conversing and still waiting on public to speak, we'll have another motion to determine if we want to continue into the night or continue to another day. I think if we end sooner than 10 p.m., then a Plan Commission member could make a motion to continue the meeting anyway. So I think we can address it in that fashion. So if we have anybody online who still wishes to speak tonight, please go ahead and raise your virtual hand to be added to the queue, and we will go back and forth between virtual attendees and in-person attendees. If we do happen to have anyone downstairs on the first floor of the courthouse in the rotunda who wishes to speak, please go ahead and come up to the room. We don't have too many people ahead of you in line. So we can turn now to the next person in line to speak in person. If you could come forward, state your first name, last name, and whether you live, work, or recreate in the county.
Hi, my name's Tim Hansen. I live in the county, I work in the county, I recreate in the county. I have since 1990. And I think I want to take a little bit a different direction. I've heard a lot of the comments and I agree with a lot of them. What I've read through the UDO and looking at the zoning maps that are projected, it seems that everything is catered towards restricting something, not promoting anything. And I think what has been talked about, the need of housing, is so important. Employers rely on it. Cook has made a big push on trying to get more people. It's not that we can't have a factory built or an office space or something. People need to have a place to live. Employers are looking for that just as they're looking for land to do it on. And so I'm thinking that the CDO needs to be reviewed just like it's happening here. But I think the document that really needs an overhaul is the comprehensive plan. It's listed as a guiding document for this document itself, yet it hasn't been updated in 13 years. The previous document that updated this for the comprehensive plan was 15 years old. And the current one, the 2012 one, talked about the things that were going on in 2012 and trying to project out to the future. And those things haven't happened. And you don't know that, you don't have the information, staff doesn't have the information because that information hasn't been gathered to make these type decisions on. And that those things, the guiding documents and vision statements, need to be in place prior to the rules that guide how they happen. I'll bet none of you know that growth has been absolutely flat since 2010.
Yes, we do.
0.9% from today to 2010. Actually, from the census in 2020 to 2023, Monroe County is decreased by 0.3%. Bloomington's decreased by 2.06%. Ellettsville is the only growth. And the one thing I can say about Ellettsville, when we had a meeting about the new stormwater ordinance, Ellettsville was the only one that says we're open for business. We'll work with you however we can. We want to have safe development, quality development, but we're open for business. And I think that's something Monroe County is lacking. And I think you need to start with a vision statement, and you start with demographics to know where you are today and where you want to go. Because we haven't had 10% growth like was predicted in the last comprehensive plan. And if we want to have a healthy county, we need to have growth.
Thank you for coming forward tonight. If our next in-person speaker could come to the podium, sign in, state your first name and last name, and whether you live, work, and recreate in the county.
Hi, I'm Joe Clark. I'm a Monroe County resident. I was born and raised here. I live in Van Buren Township. What concerns me is trying to limit the amount of animals you have per acre. I'm a full-time farmer, and I try to be a for-profit farmer. And the amount of animals that you're requesting, there's no way you can make a profit with that. And actually, there's several farmers in the area that probably have double or triple that amount, and you've got to have that to make a profit. So I think you need to look at that. The state does have numbers, and they're a lot more reasonable than the numbers that you've come up with. So that's just my concern.
Thank you, sir, for coming forward tonight. If our next in-person speaker could sign in, state your first name and last name and whether you live, work, or recreate in the county. And again, if we have anybody downstairs who still wishes to speak, please come up to the third floor.
Greg Young. I've been a resident of this county 68 years next week. I live out in Unionville, Benton Township. I got 7 generations in front of me that's farmed in Benton Township. My great-great-great-grandfather, David, came here in 1824, and we've been here ever since farming Benton and Salt Creek Townships. This is personal to me, this whole rural thing. I understand rural. I am rural. I buy my clothes at Rural King, Wranglers, Red Wings. I'm all about rural. I love my home in the country. I love Unionville. I don't want to see it change. But I don't want to see somebody not be able to have a home. 1976, I had a dream. I was 19 years old. I lost my index finger in an incident at work. I got it in a fan on a bulldozer. Well, I got a payoff from work comp, $3,000. So Jerry Gates sold me 18 acres in Unionville in 1976. In 1978, my father-in-law, my to-be future father-in-law, helped me build a new home on this 18 acres. We didn't get a permit. We never had an inspection. It's got a septic system even. Imagine that. And it still works. I've had it pumped twice in 46 years. It works. I grew up in a rural subdivision of all things. My father and Ralph Reska bought the Conard farm out by the Brown County line in 1964. They subdivided that. We moved there when I was in the 5th grade and lived in a rural subdivision. It was a good life. 10 minutes, I could be squirrel hunting, deer hunting, fishing in Salt Creek. We farmed all them bottoms out there, the lake bottoms. My brother leased that property. I know what rural life is all about, and it's good. But we can't penalize just because somebody wants to build a home out in the country. That was my dream. I accomplished it. Can a 19-year-old kid today go buy 18 acres? Slim chance. Not in this county. I'm a business owner too. My wife and I operate a small business. We got about 50 employees. And unfortunately, half of them have to live outside the county because they can't afford to live in Monroe County. That's pretty sad. You know, Dave Jenner, Tom Weiniger, they're not enemies. I guarantee you, a developer built the house you live in. It might have been a school bus driver or a farmer that built it.
And I'm sorry to cut you off, sir, but your 3 minutes are up. So thank you for coming out to share your story and speak tonight.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
You for your time. Chris, I babysat for that guy right there.
Okay, if we have anybody else in person that wishes to speak, please come forward, sign in, state your first name and last name, and whether you live, work, or recreate in the county.
Okay. Hello, my name is Lindsay Boswell, and I live, work, and recreate here in our community, currently residing within the city of Bloomington limits. Personally, I moved here 8 years ago to attend Indiana University, and I decided to remain here after completing my degree because this community provides jobs, education, arts, and recreational opportunities more than my hometown in southern Indiana, and so I chose it to be my new home. But truthfully, it's been pretty difficult to remain in this area because of the high and increasing cost of housing and the limited availability. If it's a goal for our community to grow, attract, and retain young, educated, and diverse talent, thus maintaining the vibrancy of our community and ensuring its future sustainability, I would ask that you also consider how you can increase access to affordable housing rather than decreasing access, with implications such as proposed increased lot sizes in the CDO. I'm also the development director with Habitat for Humanity of Monroe County. As you've heard from several of my colleagues and Habitat board members, homeowners, and supporters tonight, we're well aware of the need for additional attainable housing in our community and know the long-term positive impact that homeownership brings. We're contacted multiple times a week by community members looking for a safe, affordable place to call home, but our capacity to build as a nonprofit developer is somewhat limited by our philanthropic support, making it possible for us to build 8 to 10 homes per year, making a difference for those homeowners. But many other developers in our community have greater capacity, but we're all limited by the availability and affordability of land and the lack of sewer access to build within the county. The draft of the CDO that we're all speaking to tonight would only exacerbate these issues. And while we understand the importance of protecting our natural environment and current county landowners, the CDO as written would limit growth or change in our community. And without growth, we are dying or stagnating, as many of us have shared tonight with statistics. If we want to sustain the tax base, keep our special community alive, ensure a future workforce, we must also prioritize strategic growth and rather than decrease access to housing. I also want to thank everyone who attended this meeting online and in person, voicing your perspectives, and I plead all of you to please listen to the comments that have been made tonight and make necessary updates to the draft CDO. Thank you.
Thank you for coming out tonight and for your comments. If we have anybody else online who wishes to speak, please raise your virtual hand. If we have anybody else in the room who wishes to speak, please come forward to the podium. If you could sign in, state your first name, last name, and whether you live, work, or recreate in the county.
My name is Anne Marie Thompson, and I live in Monroe County, outside of the city limits. I came here to listen. I didn't come here to speak, and I appreciate having heard all the diverse voices here. I feel compelled, however, to speak on behalf of the land itself. I'm surprised we've heard very little about the value of unused land, both the economic value for a community in the form of parks, forests, growth, wildlife. There's increasing evidence that societies and communities that have lots of green space also attract a lot of people to their communities. Is it true, in fact, that higher density decreases cost of housing? Is it true that higher density is the only answer to affordable housing? Is there research that supports that? And how do we measure long-term economic benefits of green space? I would appreciate it if the CDO, and I readily admit that I have not read the 500-page document, but I would appreciate having a better understanding of how the Planning Commission balances conservation and its economic value long-term. Much of what we've heard tonight feels to me short-sighted. There is the long-term benefit of investing in our communities. Certainly affordable housing is a problem. I feel that deeply. But I feel compelled to speak for the land, and that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Thompson, for coming forward and speaking tonight, even though you hadn't planned to. We appreciate it. If there's anyone else in person that wishes to speak, you're welcome to come to the podium. And again, if we have anybody else on the first floor that wishes to speak, please come forward or please come upstairs.
Good evening. Bernie Garritaz, Monroe County resident, and I try to have some recreation time in Monroe County. It's a great place to do that. Kind of wanted to hit a couple points this evening on the buzzword for phrase for affordable housing, right? I've talked about this over the years, and I think that the key to affordable housing is we have to understand that at the ordinance level and at the planning commission level, there's a lot of control and power over making that happen. The planning commission has a tremendous amount of power. You've got Habitat for Humanity has shown up and told you that the supply is low. Well, supply is low has a lot to do with the amount of the amount it costs to buy land or to buy a piece of property or buy an improved piece of property. It's directly related to development standards. It's directly related to land costs. It's supply and demand. And another factor that I think we have to hit that with, which Mr. Funkhauser hit on, was taxes, the property taxes that we have in property now. The elevated number in dollars that we have to pay for property in our house, it comes out of our mortgage payment, comes out of our disposable income, because your neighbor's house sells for X and now all of a sudden your property sells for that. They're selling for X because development standards, land costs, supply and demand has caused that price to go up. One of the factors that go into the supply and demand is the fact that we have so many environmental and restrictions within this county. And they're restrictions that may be necessary under a different name. They might be able to be, there are other ways to work with a piece of land without automatically saying something can't be done there. Our sinkhole conservancies, we've done studies on those for years. Before we changed them, they were in pretty good shape. I think they were excessive before the latest change, but they were workable. We go through a PUD, we go through a rezone, and all of a sudden a 15-acre piece of property is halfway developable because we think we can't develop on it because it's got sinkholes on it. Well, that's not the case. The other thing that takes away from the land mass, developable land in the county, is this 25-year moratorium. It has to go. In a sliding scale subdivision, you're taking a huge percentage of a parent tract of property out of the equation, which limits the supply of land that you can use for developable property. It's a supply and demand equation. The nice lady who spoke right before me, she hit something on the head that I think that we need, and I think that the consultant can pull this together. I think that maybe they did a few years ago, but I think it would be nice for the community to know how much land is pulled out of Monroe County, both in acres and percentage, in environmental constraints. Maybe we can't calculate everything we've got for sinkholes, but we can do floodplain, we can do slopes. Some of that's changed, so that number's going to vary. But I think that those would be good numbers to have in the CDO. Thank you very much. Have a great evening, and thanks for the hard work, staff.
Thank you, Mr. Garritaz, and apologies that the beard threw me off.
I'm sorry, say it again.
Apologies that the beard threw me off. I didn't recognize you at first, but thank you for coming out tonight. Do we have anybody else in person who wishes to speak? Okay. If you want to come forward, then I see we have a virtual hand raised, so we'll go to Julie Shields after you, sir.
All right. Yeah, I'm Jamie Laspada. 25 years from now is what? 2050? I mean, most American people probably never heard of this in their life, but if you go on the World Economic Forum's website and you look at the agenda of the planning department here, it is the agenda 2030 or 2050. That's what it reflects. I just want people to know that. You need to go on that website and research it. Thank you.
Thank you for coming forward. Julie Shields, you're next. If you could unmute, state your first name, last name, whether you live, work, or recreate in the county. You'll have 3 minutes. Julie Shields, if you're able to hear us and you can unmute. Okay, we'll turn back to additional in-person comments. If there's anybody else here in the room who wishes to come forward and speak. Not seeing.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Shields.
Sorry.
Please go right ahead.
I'm Julie Shields.
I live in Monroe County. I live outside of the city limits. I'm the proud wife of a cattle farmer. And the restrictions that you're wanting to put on the farmer in the county is just, it's just unacceptable, and it's just, you're not understanding the full picture. I think it's really hard for someone to put a restriction on something if you do not work in that environment and know how that works. This is our livelihood. This is how we pay our bills and put food on the table and pay the people or feed the people in our community. And it's not as cut and dry as one cow is 1 acre. Our cows don't rely just on grass. They're grain fed. We don't have 50 cows in a 10 by 10 space. They're not mistreated. They're not going without water. They're not, in an awful place. It's just a different environment. And it's not that they're here that long, but to be able to do this business correctly, we can't have a restriction put on us. I mean, Monroe County puts so many restrictions on us now. We pay crazy amount of taxes to not be able to do what we need to do on our land. And it's our land. We paid for it. So I don't understand why we have to continuously kept being told that, we can't do this, we can't do that. And now, you can go into town and you can see all these places that don't have people working because some people don't want to work. And here we are trying to work and do the best that we can. And now the county's wanting to try to prevent us from doing our job to the best of our ability. And then the other side of it is, yes, we have property that hopefully we can hand down to our children and our grandchildren. But now you want to put a restriction on that. Why do so many people have to be in control of something that we work hard for every day? Something just needs to be changed, and something really has to be changed with this livestock restriction. That's just not going to work for the local farmers. There's not that many around here, and to do that, you're just going to create more issues, and there's not going to be any. So thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shields. I appreciate you speaking tonight. If we have anybody else online who wishes to speak, please raise your virtual hand. Or if we have anybody else here in the room who wishes to speak, please come to the podium. Not seeing anyone online and not seeing anyone else here in person who wishes to speak, I want to thank everyone for coming out and speaking tonight. It's been great hearing everyone's feedback. So this has given the Plan Commission and planning staff a lot to think about and to talk about. So I want to turn now to our planning director, Jackie Nestor-Jelen, before we come back to the Plan Commission to make a determination about whether we will close public comment at this point or continue to another meeting to hear additional public comment. I do want to remind the Plan Commission members that if we continue to another meeting, that would be a continuation of this meeting, and our rules of procedure prohibit anybody from speaking twice at the same public meeting. So that means if we continue, then we would not hear from anybody who has already spoken tonight. It would require people who have not yet spoken to speak. So Ms. Nestor-Jelen, if there's anything you would like to add.
Sure. I would just lay out to the Plan Commission 3 options that I see moving forward, and Mr. Roddy can correct me if I'm wrong, but one option could be to continue this hearing to October 1st. It would be at 5:30 p.m. in the Nat U. Hill room, and it would be to, as Jeff stated, hear anyone else that would wish to speak on this topic. A second option is to adjourn tonight's meeting and not have a future meeting on this topic. And a third option is to adjourn the hearing and close the public comment period. I want to note that if you do the third option of closing the public comment, We did encourage people that were here, possibly an overflow, that the CDO feedback survey was going to still be open. Once you adjourn the public hearing on this topic, all of that public hearing, all that public comment that's basically brought to us after you adjourn is going to be consideration for the commissioners and not necessarily the Plan Commission. So I want to make sure that if you do go with option 3 and we still get a trickling in of public comment, if you want to give them a few days grace period to keep that going, I would suggest not closing the public comment. So I'll just concisely offer the options again. So 1, continue the hearing to October 1st. 2, adjourn the hearing, or 3, adjourn the hearing and close the public hearing. And I'll also note that Tron Enright Randolph has his hand raised on Teams.
Okay, we'll get to you in just a second, Mr. Enright Randolph. I do want to mention a couple of additional items on the agenda, which is reports. So Jackie, do you have any reports for us tonight?
I do not.
And Buddy, do you have any legal reports for us tonight?
No, Mr. Morris.
Okay, thank you, sir. So we have the 3 options available to us to bring back to the Plan Commission for comment. So Mr. Enright Randolph, with your hand raised, I'll let you go first.
Yes. Well, it's pretty obvious. I don't want to stifle any actual communication or discussion or dialogue, but I'm ready to make a motion. So I'm going to motion that we continue this public comment and hearing to the October 1st meeting date at 5:30 in the Nate Hill room. And I preface that with, I know that a lot of people have left the meeting. I've had a lot of text messages and such as well. And there's also been a few hiccups online where some folks didn't know what was going on when we kind of took a break. And also some folks had thought there might have been technical difficulties. And so I think there's still a lot of folks that had wished to speak. So that's my motion, and I hope I get a second.
Do we have a second, or do we want to continue conversation?
I would make a second to keep the motion on the floor, but not call for the question, so we can discuss the motion if that's fine. Because otherwise the motion would die for lack of a second. So I second
fine.
the motion and ask for continued discussion.
Absolutely.
And to that end, I want actually to express 2 things, one related to the motion and the other a public announcement of equal importance, I think. But it occurs to me that a lot of people were cut off at 3 minutes. And given the amount of time that we have spent as a board on this CDO and the duration that the CDO will have as a guiding document, to limit people with what I felt like were genuine enumerated concerns to 3 minutes is maybe unfair would be the word. Inconsiderate might also be a word. But I did not hear an option for any way to reopen the floor to people who spoke already tonight. I think that should be addressed, but I didn't hear any options for that. That's the reason I seconded this motion. And the other thing that I wanted to mention as a public notice is that I am a county commissioner's appointee. I am a partisan appointee to the Monroe County Plan Commission. That means that my appointment has to be to someone who is not affiliated with the Democrat Party. My appointment ends in December. I do not intend to and would not accept reappointment to this board, which means that the seat that I occupy on the Plan Commission will be vacant at the end of the calendar year 2024. The county commissioners sitting behind me are the ones who are responsible for filling this seat. If you are not affiliated with the Democrat Party and would like to be appointed to this seat, I encourage you to contact them without delay.
Thank you, Mr. Pittsford. I think one comment that I want to make sure the public is aware of too, that unless we go with the third option that Jackie mentioned tonight, which is adjourning and closing public comment, then those who were cut off at the 3-minute mark can still submit feedback on the Monroe CDO website. So if you go to monroecdo.com, there's a form that you can fill out, or you're welcome to call the planning office or email the planning office. So I think there is still opportunity unless we vote in favor of the third option tonight for public comment. So I just want to make sure that everybody knows that. So I think we've got a motion in a second, but we've also heard from 2 Plan Commission members. So I do want to make sure that we hear from other Plan Commissioners who wish to speak. So Ms. Owens, I see your hand raised, so we can go with you first.
Thank you very much. And I was just going to point out what you already said, Jeff, that people are welcome, as long as we vote to continue this, people are welcome to submit their comments online. And I noticed a lot of people had written comments, and so that shouldn't be too big of a burden for them. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Owens. Ms. Clements?
Well, unfortunately, we've been through the comments of an entire evening of the public hearing. And if we had wanted to have increased the speaker time to more than 3 minutes, it should have been done at the beginning of the meeting or sometime beforehand when we talked about the rules as a plan commission to increase the allotted amount of time for people to speak. Now, as you all well know, I am in favor of hearing from the public in general, but I do think that an issue of fairness has been raised in terms of the people who may have left early because of the crowd size, or I just would like for us to deliberate over fairness.
If I might, I'm not stepping. No. Okay. All right. I just want to make sure you were done. I agree with Ms. Clements that issue should have been raised, but I just want to be clear to folks too that if you spoke, you can also submit written comments, right? Having spoken does not prevent you from presenting written comments on this. I am going to support a meeting on October 1st. I would ask that only new commenters are invited to actually submit comments at that meeting, but everyone, of course, is always welcome to attend. And if folks hear about this after the fact, they can join that if we have it, that next meeting via Teams, and as you saw today, have your opportunity to speak. So I really do want to thank everyone for being here, because this is what democracy looks like. We can't make everyone happy, but we certainly do want to know what you think so we can do our best. So thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Thomas. Mr. Ferris, do you have any comments that you'd like to make?
I'm not going to repeat what others have said, and I support the motion.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Ferris. I agree. I think we've heard a lot of good feedback tonight. We've heard some things that I want to bring up in future Plan Commission meetings, and I appreciate the civility of everybody in your comments. Even though there are obviously some people that disagree, I appreciate the way everybody spoke in a respectful manner tonight. So we have a motion and a second on the table, Jackie, so if you would call the roll.
Sure. The motion and the second is to continue this hearing to October 1st so that it would be, again, 5:30 p.m. in the Nat U Hill Room. A vote yes is to continue to October 1st. Jeff Morris?
Yes.
Dee Owens?
Yes.
Jerry Pittsford?
Yes.
Julie Thomas?
Yes.
Mark?
Yes.
Tron and Wright Randolph?
Yes, and I just wanted to express my appreciation for everyone that came and spoke today.
Scott Ferris?
Yes.
Okay, the motion passes 7-0. I'll also note just before the October 1st meeting, some of the comments that were made tonight, obviously we won't be able to fully address in a week's time, but some of the comments regarding accessory livestock, we do want to meet with you all and make sure that we're clear on your understanding and our understanding, and we'll provide a brief presentation on that before the meeting on October 1st. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jackie, and thank you all for spending your evening with us. We appreciate your feedback, and keep looking at monroecdo.com for updates. So thank you all.